Call the city council work session to order. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Vining. Germaini.
Here.
Felder.
Here.
Hayter. Stillgrave. Mayor Clark.
Present. So we have first is public comment, correct?
Oh, I'm sorry, yes.
Is there any comments from those present here this evening? Any comments from the public? Seeing none. The next item, clerk.
The next item is under the work session agenda, item 5793, MPSD update presentation.
Thank you. Manager Robinson, presentations this evening?
Yes, Your Honor, the first presentation this evening would be from the Monroe Public Safety Department and Director Tolstead.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. Chad Tolstead, your Director of Public Safety. I appreciate the opportunity to be able to speak in front of you tonight. This presentation, which you had in your packet tonight, is going to cover several areas. And during the presentation, if you have questions, need clarification on something, feel free, Your Honor, to stop, ask questions. But I do have time in here for pauses to answer questions. But if I happen to blow past them, I'm not. Feel free to raise your hand, and I'll draw attention to it. So,
Very good. Thank you.
So what we're gonna walk through tonight is some staffing and hiring updates, the leadership development, succession planning, education and professional development, training, readiness and documentation, school safety and our SRO expansion, the DARE program development, community partnerships and outreach, technology and camera projects, and our facility and long-term planning, and then ending with looking ahead. So as we go through this presentation tonight, you're going to see some common themes for what we're doing within the Public Safety Department, which is working on our long-term stability, service delivery, and proactive investment into the people, into the department in of itself. So we're talking about progress, priorities, and next steps. So where we're going to start with tonight is our hiring process. And to kind of give you some background on how our hiring process works, where we came from, and how we work through our hiring process, because I know about every other week you get an update from me as you get your city updates as a whole. You get an update from the Public Safety Department of where we're at in the hiring process. I just wanted to explain to you how this works. So previously, how we did our hiring process for police and fire worked like this. We received the application. We called you in for an interview. If you met the qualifications for that, we would interview you. If you got a 70% or better, we would then place you on a list to be hired. That was the extent, really, of the hiring process. So of course, you would move into a background process. What we did to really start trying to capture talent, and what we felt we were missing was the applications would come in. So our standard for firefighters was firefighter paramedic. It is very difficult these days to find a firefighter paramedic that has completed all that training. So how we started looking at things, we had to change in the way in which we were looking at people in hiring. Not so much hiring for what the skills, for what they've done in school, but hiring the person and looking at how can we train them to meet the kind of need we have here in the city of Monroe. So we still have the application process, of course, where they apply on, and then we implemented a phone screening process. We have found the phone screening process internally for the Public Safety Department to be an absolute time saver to eliminate candidates that aren't quite ready for the Public Safety Department, whether it be for firefighter or policing. From that, if they pass that process, they move to an oral board process, where they sit in a panel in front of our either police officers or firefighters, and work, and then they're asked questions, and if they achieve a 70% or better, they then move to the next phase, which is the ride-along and third rides. So the ride-alongs are for police, third rides are for fire. Same things, called two different things. And why that process is so important, we felt it necessary, the administration felt it necessary to work with our unions to they have a say in who we hire and who we don't. So as they do these ride-alongs, which are required to do 2 and 2 third rides, they are evaluated and given impression points by the members of the department which evaluate them. Those points are then assigned to them as well. If they get through that process, they then get to meet with me, and I also get to assign them some impression points. From that, to points are tallied. We add up all their education, which we assign certain points for education. We assign them certain points for paramedic, firefighting, for policing. Are they a certified police officer? How long have they been a police officer? All that is added in for a final score to be aggregated to place them on this list. So once on the list, we then move to the hiring process. So the competitiveness in the field right now for both firefighting and policing is quite intense. So how do we capture that talent where would they wait for us to do the background? How we've done that is through our public safety specialist positions. We currently have 2, and we're going to hire a 3rd next week for a public safety specialist. 2 of them are fresh out of the military. They came home, they don't have a job yet, but they're looking for a job with us, but they need to have an income in the meantime while we wrap up their background investigations. So we hire them as temporary public safety specialists, pay them a living wage, and then capture them to work for the city of Monroe rather than lose them for a different agency. One of them was applied to an outside department outside of Monroe County, but wanted to be here in Monroe. We said, we agree, we want you to come and be in Monroe as well. Come on board here as a temporary public safety specialist. We'll pay you. And then it gives us another chance to take a look at this employee as well. And the temporary status is important because if something in their background comes up where they're not a good fit for us, we can end the relationship and ask them to seek employment elsewhere. So once they get through all that processes, and the same thing with the firefighters as well, some of the things which we've been doing with them is we started hiring firefighter EMTs, which is EMT is a lower level than what our standard is paramedic. The paramedic training is about 14 months. So you imagine why it's so hard to find someone who's completed all that training. So we hire a firefighter EMT. We then put that firefighter EMT through paramedic training one at a time, and that was working with the unions through an MOU that myself and HR drafted together that to hire these people on so we can capture that talent as well. When we opened up that pool to the firefighter EMT, our pool began great. We had great candidates. We also are very encouraging because we have one of our current firefighter paramedics teaching in that school. He's a good representation for the city of Monroe, and we've had a lot of applicants come in that are already enrolled in paramedic school to work for us as well. We also have the opportunity here currently from the state to capture funds. Because recruitment is so tough, the state is providing financial support for sending officers through the academy and paying part of their wages as well. Sorry, I forgot to click you guys to the first slide.
I was going to.
I was so used to I was so
Sorry.
used to the clerk kind of helping me out, and shameless plug for the clerk in there as well. So move on to the education and development. The education development. So once they're hired by us, that education and the development of these firefighters and officers doesn't stop there. We continue. We have several firefighters and police officers that are taking the opportunity for tuition reimbursement. That is, of course, for college education credits. We are also looking for working with the community college through my relationship with this Leadership Monroe that we're able to capture that paramedic training and roll that over into college credits. So police officers, and we've been hiring them for many years like this. So a 16-week academy, the police academy, oftentimes those officers can come out and complete an associate's degree with the credits they receive while in the academy. So that being said, I talked to the college. Coincidentally, the college is looking to start a paramedic program. It's a state-run curriculum, so it wouldn't be different for what's done from these other schools. Firefighters would then be able to apply those credits towards an associate's degree while still obtaining additional credits. They would have to do that extra work, but we're trying to capture and leverage all those things like we've been doing for police officers for years as well. Before we move on to the next part, is there any questions at this point?
Any questions from council? Kelly?
I was just trying to get a better understanding of the temporary public safety specialists. So are they on patrol? Are they?
Good question. What
are their duties?
So previously, we had a parking enforcement officer. Since we changed the way we enforce parking, we were using it as kind of a feeder. So we don't need someone out there every hour, it's every 2 hours. So we changed the title to a public safety specialist. That role of the public safety specialist is really anything we need them to do in the meantime. It's almost, it's an enhanced, we have, you know how we have cadets that perform tasks? These public safety specialists will perform some similar tasks, plus they'll be doing parking enforcement as well. But they're not patrol officers, they're not sworn officers. We're just in the holding pattern until we get to send them over to the academy or firefighters.
Thank you.
You're welcome, ma'am. All right, thank you, Your Honor. So moving forward through the training readiness in the documentation. So we have improved our internal tracking and documentation of training across all divisions. That includes fire, EMS, and police. So there's state requirements for each of those licenses. It's newer for police officers. They're called CPEs, continuing professional education credits. I can say we have, of course, met the minimum standards, but we've exceeded those in all categories. Also, what we've done and we've improved upon, for those who were here during the Fitch study, the last study, was we've improved upon the way we track and have those readily available for us for both police and fire. And why that's so important is not just to know what training we've sent them to, that protects us from liability. We can see what training they have been through, what training they haven't been through, and if we're lacking training in a certain area. One of the things that we've also implemented and brought up is our annual review, different than the annual report. Annual review takes into account all of our uses of force, takes into account of officer injuries, and we review all these things annually, which helps us shape what training we want to do for our officers. Some of the training is mandatory. We have to do certain training mandated by the state. Other trainings is elective by the training staff. I can tell you aggressively, my fire training staff has looked to improve the amount of training they've received in a year. So the minimum is 12, which is not a lot of training. We exceeded that by far in 2025. In 2026, my training staff came up with 100 hours for each individual firefighters, which is a tremendous amount of training. So much so, I said, are we sure we can accomplish this goal? He feels confident that he can. The police training is similar in nature. So I received a thorough booklet of what training is going to look like in 2026. So no longer are we just going about this in, I wouldn't say haphazardly is the right word, but we're going about it very strategically in how we're doing and how we're tracking our training. So through this, we're doing that through the strengthening of how we document these things. So kind of what we've covered in this first slide is how we're hiring carefully, we are investing in our people, and we're emphasizing training and accountability. And next slide is we're planning ahead. So one of the foundations for success and what drives excellence in community service is leadership. It happens both in the field and behind a desk. It gets our supervisors ready for communications with their fellow firefighters, fellow officers, but not just them, for fellow departments within the city of Monroe and our citizens and those they serve. So how are we promoting this and how are we developing our leadership? Some years ago, Lieutenant Marks, who's the president here today, was tasked with the assignment when he went through staff and command to create a training program for new supervisors. So we have a 30-day supervisor training program. So when they come in, we know there's certain things we want them to know. There's policies or procedures they should know as a supervisor. We do scenarios with them as well to prepare them for the challenges of supervision. And with that, we also, after they become supervisors, we send them to supervisory schools. We've implemented that same program over into the fire. We just implemented over there and done the same things over fire to prepare our new supervisors and command staff for the next steps they're about to take. Once they're in supervision, we continue with their training programs. We look for other opportunities, one of which is the Eastern Michigan School Staff and Command. But not just that staff and command through EMU, we're looking through other schools as well to help build that. The ones pictured here were our last two graduate, which is Fire Marshal Hudson and Lieutenant Brent Cathy, who graduated from the Eastern Michigan School Staff and Command. To develop further, many of you in leadership roles here within the city understand this. To get every supervisor moving in the same direction is a tough task, right? To receive all the same training at the same time can be difficult to do. So what we looked at, we found a program from Echelon Front, written by the authors of Extreme Ownership, and it's almost like, for lack of a better term, an enhanced book club. But what this book club does is we have monthly meetings. You read the chapter, you work through your workbook, watch the videos in which the chapter is based upon, and then we meet monthly. Not just police and fire siloed, not just our civilian staff separately, we're all intermingled together. This ensures all 21 of our command staff, myself included, are moving in the same direction, receiving the same training, and preparing ourselves for what comes next. Does anybody have any questions before we move on to the next? Mayor?
Questions from council? I do have a question, because I know that, as you said, it's a lot of hours and trying to schedule all those, and so I don't know, do you do this other than the book, which you schedule at some point when you have those sessions, but some of the other, I'm not sure what they would be, but some of the other training or opportunities, are they scheduled time days, non-scheduled days, or is it a combination there?
Are you referring to like when we send them to schools and
yeah.
yes, either sometimes they'll be during their shifts and sometimes they won't be during their shifts. With shift work, as you know, like some days you might be on a couple days, like I'll use police as an example. Monday, Tuesday, the shifts are on, but the class might be 3 days. So they'll be gone Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and we account for all those hours in there. So sometimes it might be on overtime, sometimes it might be just during their regular shifts.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. All right, we'll move into, yes, ma'am.
So where is this? Is this all online, or do they have to go someplace in person? Do they go to Eastern?
Training I referred to, the echelon front or the school staff and command?
Staff and command.
Okay, the staff and command is it's a 9-month program. It's 1 week a month. They go away up to staff and command. I'm a graduate, class 30 of that. So 1 week a month they go up there, and it's Monday through Friday. That's their day job, right? So they go up there and they learn about, and it's various topics of what they get to learn about throughout their, all revolving around leadership. Why that program is so valuable, former director Tom Moore went there. We had some other chiefs go there. Chief McCormick kind of set this in place for us. And what's good about all going to the Eastern Michigan Staff and Command, even though we look outside of that at times, is it's consistent. We know what kind of product they're giving our officers, and it's both for police and fire.
Okay, thank you.
They don't get to go at the same time, but they do have a shared week.
They
But
don't. Okay.
all right, thank you, Mayor. So the next slide, we'll kind of shift gears a little bit, and we'll talk about school safety and the SRO expansion. So again, during the bi-weeklies, you've been receiving some updates as far as what the school resource officers in the Catholic schools. But I'll just kind of go back and explain what a school resource officer is, what an SRO is, and how this program has worked within the city of Monroe for a number of years since I started. So we have one full-time school resource officer. That school resource officer is housed in the Monroe Middle School. So during that day, that's what their day consists of, is being inside that school. They teach classes in there, they provide mentorship, and they do the day-to-day activities working with the school administrative staff. When that officer is in that school, they then, the school invoices, we invoice the school for the officer's time in that school. So it's not, we don't invoice them for the full year. Anything related to that officer being in school, we get to invoice the schools for. They then pay the city of Monroe for the wages of that officer, whether it be on overtime or during there. That program has been in existence for 25 plus years, probably longer. Last year, the superintendent, Andy Shaw, approached me and wanted to increase the amount of SROs we have within the school district. We were the only jurisdiction that I know of that expanded in this capacity. He said, well, we can do one about half. So what does a half look like? So if you have a 10-day bi-weekly, 2-week period, 5 days are in the school, 5 days that officer works on the road. The 5 days in the school, we invoice the school for those hours. And the other 5 days are just for the city of Monroe, their regular wages. So we have 1.5 SROs currently. So last year, I went to the Catholic schools, say, hey, the Monroe Public Schools is looking to do a half officer. Do you want to pick up the other half? At that time, was not a good fit for them. But they then returned to us this year and asked, hey, we are now interested in adding that half SRO. We met with them last week. The meeting was very positive. They have the agreement in their hands. Their archdiocese is looking over to send back to us for review, for ultimately your approval to move forward with this. But I will emphasize this, that the city of Monroe should be proud of the officers. We have 2 officers that provide safety and security training within the Catholic schools. It's no doubt in my mind, their professionalism, how they go about business within that school, we wouldn't be here if they didn't conduct themselves so. So it's very encouraging that this Catholic school approached us and wanted us to be a part of their school in a larger capacity. The DARE program. So the half officer, the half SRO that I refer to is housed within the Cantrick Middle School. I'm sorry, it's not a middle school, it's just Cantrick School, my apologies. So Cantrick School consists of 5th and 6th grade within the city of Monroe. 5th and 6th grade is the target audience for the DARE program. So us now having an SRO in that school, and all the Monroe Public Schools 5th and 6th graders are in our jurisdiction, it makes sense that we start conducting the DARE training. So our officer has already been to DARE training as well. Previously, all this DARE training was conducted by the sheriff's office. They did a fine job with the program. I've already talked with Sheriff Troy Goodenough. He understands that this is housed within the city of Monroe, but this is an excellent partnership in how we relate to our community and making inroads into our schools, and what an important role this is as well. Before we move to the next slide, which is unrelated to SRO and DARE, does anybody have any questions?
Questions? See none? Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. Community partnerships and outreach. As many of you know, we are, the Public Safety Department is very active within the community. As you can see from the many pictures that are posted there above, some of which is our firefighters are consistently in a community installing smoke detectors. This is a free program offered to our citizens. We also offer CPR training throughout the city. So when we first started looking at the CPR training, I was asked, well, you know, shouldn't we be concerned that we would overtax our staff? And, you know, too many people asking us for CPR training. I said, if we get that problem, let me know. So we have been asked a lot to do the CPR training, but my staff has stepped up and has completed. I think last year we did over 200 persons trained within the city of Monroe. They're heading out to Central Dispatch next week to train their staff as well. We've also partnered with local, I can't think what the word, Kiwanis, for the stuffed animals dogs to give to, our buddies and Apollos to give to victims of those who might have suffered some crime or been a victim of something. We also have partnered with, as you know, a couple months ago, Men on a Mission was in here as well. And we continue to partner with the Monroe County Mental Health Authority in the mobile crisis team. Those not familiar with the mobile crisis team, this is what some of the stuff as society as large was demanding from our police forces. How this process works is if we go to a scene, police are often called there. We deem this as not criminal in nature. There's nobody in immediate physical danger. We may call the mobile crisis team that comes out at that time and deals with them on some of those things that they're more trained to deal with. This has been a great partnership. It's been great to be on the ground floor, myself and many other part of my staff, to help develop this program as well as with the sheriff's office as well, I'll point out. So we're building our community relations throughout the city in many different ways. So we have some technology and camera project updates as well. So we are updating the cameras at Carnes Park. The reason why we're updating those cameras is to get more full coverage of the Carnes Park. The city has made a large investment into that area. We're just looking to get some more coverage. We missed some things we wish we would have captured on camera. In working with IT, who's been a great partner, finance, and then Mark Cochran with the Parks and Recreation Department, we laid out a new plan for better coverage for the cameras. That comes to a vote for you tonight as well. We are happy, the Public Safety Department is happy to take a lead in that and help the city as a whole bring that about. This helps to protect our, from graffiti and other items that might occur. We're also looking at doing cameras on the Riverwalk as well. There's some old plans that IT has dug up. At one time, there was a plan implemented on that. We would like to bring that forth as well to get cameras on the Riverwalk. I think that's one of those things that's been talked about for probably before I arrived here within the city of Monroe, and the mayor would probably remember. Lastly, on this technology front, and can kind of continue with the partnership, you'll see DTE listed up there as well. So some time ago, the new head of security contacted me. We had somewhat a meet and greet with them as well. They built a new guard shack out there. One of the things they were looking to do out there was put in a license plate readers, or what we call flock cameras. I asked them how we could be of assistance. We didn't hear anything for a little bit. They've recently recontacted me as well and say they're interested in funding 2 LPR cameras placed in the city of Monroe. This agreement has been sent back to them as well, ultimately for your approval. But this helps protect our critical infrastructure and helps us with partnerships within the city of Monroe. Not just DTE, but the Port of Monroe's down there and the steel company as well. So this is very encouraging in a compliment to my staff and to the city of Monroe as well. Any questions on the technology and camera projects?
Kelly?
I just wanted to be clear, DTE is gonna cover the cost for the license plate readers?
Two additional ones, not all the ones we currently have, but 2 additional ones to be placed near their facility. That's the agreement. If that's what they approached me with, said they're willing to do. That's the agreement we wrote up and reviewed by Matt Buds. Ultimately, it's back in their hands to be approved by council.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Other questions? See none.
Moving on, we'll talk about some transparency and public communication. So monthly, you guys get a monthly report from us. This is part of those all the statistics in which we're driving the department to make statistical data-driven decisions. With that, we also publish that for the our public as well. Communications does an excellent job of housing those on our website. So what you get, the public also receives as well. Additionally, as you know, many of you follow on Facebook, some more than others. We also post many things of crime and unfortunate things that may happen in our neighborhoods, but also the good things like public service announcements, the different kind of work we're doing within the city of Monroe. I think the picture that is up there is the CPR training that we recently did at the Salvation Army as well. So continually working on clearly communicating with the public, and this gives us an opportunity to let them know what we want them to know and relay the messages we want from the Public Safety Department and from the city of Monroe. Oops. Okay. I also want to do a brief update on the facility and long-term planning. So we've talked about as council what it looks like for a new police station. The bond, as you know, failed a few years ago. The sheriff's office the Sheriff Goodenough is currently working on building an annex. The annex would be next to the current police station, which is 100 East 2nd Street, which is where we're housed now. So if you go across the alley, his idea and his plan is to build something there. His plan is also to build a lot of partnerships, one of which is to move the City of Monroe Police into a new facility within that building. He is still working through the processes of that with his county commissioners. There's no other new information I have to provide tonight on that. Lastly, on this part also as well, the county of Monroe has authorized and approved a capital improvement project within our current facility in which we're currently housed. Many of you have toured our building and walked through there. That CIP project is for the upgrading of the locker rooms, not just for the city side of things, but for the county as well. Both Sheriff Goodenough and I both have said our female locker rooms are nearing capacity on both sides of the house there. So that project has been approved. I've been in continual communication with the sheriff as well on that one. So when that project's moved forward, I'll provide additional details. Before we move on from this, anybody have any questions on the police building?
Questions from council? I assume that you said an annex, it's affixed to the current building, and expanding the property that's owned by the county, I'm assuming.
Owned by the county, and that's some of the stuff we spoke about that's what the sheriff referred to as an annex. But it would be connected in some way, shape, or form. But some of the things I know we've talked about with council is do we want to go back to renting from them? Is this something we can buy as a condo? Many different options, faced in front of us, the decisions possibly down the road.
Yeah, I'm sure there's logistics and all that to figure out, so thank you.
Yes, sir. And lastly, this week or early next week, we will publish our third annual report. This annual report is pretty comprehensive. Many of my staff call it like a yearbook because it's like almost a review of all the things that we've done in the previous years. All these are housed online as well. You'll be provided a hard copy as well. But this is also what we utilize this annual report, even though it's tongue in cheek called a yearbook. We also utilize this for what have we accomplished this previous year? What are we still working for? This provides us all that data as well, in which we also report uses of force. We report citizen complaints, and it's a pretty comprehensive report as well. So with that is all I have for you tonight. But I would invite Your Honor, if anybody has any questions or clarification on anything I presented or something I didn't present they would like to know about.
Sure, thank you. Council, any additional questions or thoughts or items that you have? Michelle?
The cameras that we're thinking about for the Riverwalk, where would they be placed, on the bridge?
Ideally, unfortunately, we receive a lot of graffiti under the bridges. So we are still working on placement, where we can get power from, how we can get cellular the cell service down there, those cameras as well. So I haven't seen the mock-up plans for it, but I know IT department's been working with my police commander in terms of placement.
What about St. Mary's Park? Any plans for cameras there as well?
Myself and Director Cochran have been talking about that as well, and there is plans to have cameras in place at the St. Mary's Park.
Good.
Other questions or comments? Don't appear to see any.
Okay. Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you, Council.
Thank you.
Thank you, Clerk LaVoy.
Regarding the work session, the next item?
The next item would be Director Lewis. I'd like to present you some information about consideration for the extension of some construction contracts into the 2026 year.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and Council and Clerk Treasurer. Patrick Lewis, Director of Engineering and Public Services, Interim Director of Water and Wastewater Utilities. Mine won't be quite as exciting as Director Tolsted's is, but I wanted to present you with a few mundane things here as we approach the season where we're going to start bringing some bids to you for consideration. So couple of projects we had specifically in mind that City Manager Robinson said we had time tonight that I could put in front of you is we've approached our contractors from last year. We usually do this around this time of year, the ones we have relationships with, and say, here's what work we have coming out, here's what we're going to bid, and here's some contracts that you might be interested in. As we did last year, our concrete paving program reached out to us and said, would you be willing to consider an extension? And I know you've worked with them before. GV Cement was our concrete paving contractor last year. They are a responsible bidder. They are a relatively local, Brownstown. Usually we ask them, okay, what are you looking at for a unit price extension? This time they said, we'd be willing to hold our prices from last year into 2026 if there's any work that the city would like to roll over. I've approached you before and kind of given you some of the pros and cons of that. I will tell you this season seems to be a pretty good one for bids so far. On tonight's regular agenda, you'll see our trail project, the Loop Trail Extension Project, came in considerably under our estimate. So perhaps the work is starting to slow down a bit, but there is, of course, an advantage to working with known contractors that we have a relationship with. Give you a rough idea of what we're looking at for major projects for, I'll call them the nuts and bolts, the stuff that's not sexy, your routine streets and utilities projects. We have a number of streets. 4 of them will be packaging together. which will include water mains and streets within the same area. We do intend to bid that contract, and that'll be kind of our signature infrastructure contract this year, largely because we're going to avoid last year's Arbor Avenue problem, where we tried splitting up the work to save a little bit of money. Sometimes it works, and sometimes you have a situation like last year where we had the street sitting there for 3 months waiting for our paving contractor. So we're not going to repeat that problem this year. But we do have a couple of streets that are, I'll call them ready to go now, that don't have the utility projects on them. Michigan Avenue would be an example of that, roughly an $800,000 project. And then we have a series of smaller concrete patching jobs. Fredericks Drive was approved in the CIP. That's we're doing about 30% of the surface area, and we'll put the whole road in good shape. And then another $200,000 worth of, I'll call them 6 or 7 smaller areas where we can do 100 or 200 feet of street, and the rest of it's in already good shape. In addition to the parking lot at DPS, we're doing another extension around the back. So about $1.25 million of work we'd be looking at that would be ready for award very soon. And we we discussed with GV Cement their willingness to extend that work. And we would recommend bringing to you in 3 weeks a change order for 2026 work, because they've agreed to basically hold their same pricing as last year. We would then bid the bulk of the contract with the water mains and streets associated with those water main locations. And that'll probably be a $4 million-ish contract. So that we're going to entertain public bids, freshen up the competition on that. So I kind of wanted to get your sense on whether you were open to that before I brought you a formal request at the next meeting to extend GV's contract on that smaller package. Another one that we'll be bringing in front of you, which I think is a bit of a no-brainer, because we keep, this will be about the 3rd time that I've brought this to council, and I do have a handout if you'd like to see it. We recently got in on Friday afternoon an extension proposal from Ron Noel Lawn Service, who does all of our grass mowing for the city. They have been our contractor on at least most of the city's acreage since 2014. And they again floated a 3-year extension proposal at no additional cost. Each year is at 0% increase. That's contract when we originally bid it in 2014. There was actually a cycle in 2009 we bid. This would be the second iteration of that, where the contracts include an automatic CPI adjustment. So we go February to February, and then whatever that is, the percentage change was an increase. Each time we've reached the end of Ron's contract, he has floated us a proposal to extend rather than rebidding that work. And in 2019, that proposal was actually a 10% cut for the next year. So he actually gave us a 10% discount, and then we went CPI up from there. The cycle after that in 2022, he gave us a 5% discount, and then we went CPI up from there. And again, in 2024, he offered us 3 more years at 0%, which he's again offering at this point. Bottom line with that all is that we're looking at essentially the same pricing all the way out to 2029 that we had in 2014. So that's a pretty solid value for the city. It's the certainty of having a known vendor. We haven't had any major service issues. And obviously from a staff standpoint, it's much easier to continue to coordinate with the vendor that we know and is a local vendor. So again, I would be considering bringing that to you as a formal agenda item in 3 weeks. But I wanted to get your sense of if there were any concerns or heartache about that before I teed that up for you at the next meeting. We have one other smaller contract, which is, I think, of lesser concern. Every year we contract for some crack sealing on our asphalt roadways. There's not a lot of bidders that like to bid our volume of work because we're only talking about $100,000 worth of work every year. And so we have worked with Highway Maintenance of Romulus, and they, again, like they've done the last few years, offered to extend their pricing at no increase. So we haven't bid that one in 5 or 6 years. So I know there's obviously a concern at some point about when you need to go back out and freshen those bids up. But when we're looking at a no-cost increase with a known vendor, I'm kind of obligated to bring that in front of you because I think that represents a good, stable arrangement for the city unless you have any strong concerns to the contrary. So I think I'll leave it at that for now and see if there's any concerns or questions before we formalize everything for the next meeting.
Thank you, Patrick. Any questions or comments from council members? Kathy?
Just out of curiosity, if we said we would like you to go out and do the bid, what kind of work does your department have to put in to getting that ready, evaluating, like, number of hours? Just curious how much work on our side.
For the routine projects, it's not terribly significant. Most of these were contracts that had been bid before. So, and they're the same type of work. I mean, we have a set of specifications that, I'll tweak those every year. I'll look at those and say, we always laughingly say in the office, we always write our specs chasing last year's problems. In other words, what did we get burned on? What challenges do we have? And try to write a spec that's a little more airtight. But we've gotten pretty good at that. So I would say for some of these routine ones, it's probably a couple of days worth of effort, but nothing that's like radically concerning on projects like this. So
Zero.
it's not zero. No, it's not zero. And then of course you always run the risk that you get a low bidder that's slightly lower, but maybe the quality's not there and you're not as they don't do quite as good work as a vendor you're used to. We are in a fairly stable place with the three that have floated proposals out here that we think we get pretty good work and we have a good working relationship with them. So I can never stand before you and say I'm absolutely convinced this would be the absolute lowest bid you could possibly get. But I know when we're in the pretty close to the low bid range here, and I wouldn't recommend it if I thought we had a chance to save significant dollars, and that's why on some of our projects like the water main and streets program, we're going to bid that as a big package because there's enough meat there that contractors can get competitive. So,
Thank you.
but good question though.
Kelly, did you have a question?
Yes, the GV cement, is that who did our sidewalk?
Yes, that would be our sidewalk contractor as well.
Okay.
So it would actually be two contracts with them, and they've offered to extend pricing on both. The sidewalks, they're one of the only games in town that I don't want to say likes to do our program, but tolerates our program. It's very difficult to make a lot of money on sidewalks where you're doing 2 squares here and 2 squares a block over and 2 squares on the other side of town, and you're constantly changing because our list grows as the year goes on. The more people walk their dogs in the summertime, the more referrals we get, and they're not necessarily in any particular order. So we do have a targeted program area, but it's there's almost more in the scattered sites that come in on complaints anymore than the target area. So we do like continuing to work with them on sidewalks because they seem to have it down to a science. They're one of the few that can make money on it. So
Thank you.
Yeah.
So how often, this is just an opinion, do we get a contractor and then they subcontract it out because they have too many jobs to do? Does that happen a lot?
It doesn't happen a lot. I can, like with Ron Knoll, for example, our lawn service, he does subcontract about half the work to Jason Hunter, but we've known of that arrangement, so we're comfortable with it. GV does everything. They almost never subcontract out anything. They also work alone, so they're not usually going to show up as a subcontractor on someone else's project. Whereas some of the water main teams like Sal & Bean, for example, if they're the low bidder, they will probably use GM & Sons. That's a known subcontractor. And that'll represent, on a utility and paving job, that'll probably be almost a 50-50 split. Same thing with E.R. Zeiler, who's the low bidder tonight on the trail project. They always work with Oglesby Construction on the concrete. And so there are a lot of teams that come out there, but it's pretty rare that somebody gets into a contract and says, oh, wait, this is too much work. I got to pitch some to somebody else. That doesn't happen terribly often, usually because our jobs aren't that big in the grand scheme of things. But yeah.
Other questions? Andrew?
Yeah. With the extensions out into 2026, and we're already here now, there's no risk of projects being delayed further in this year and that we get in a situation where we're chasing our tail. There's some economies of scale here that present themselves in terms of the inspection and the bidding that will accelerate these projects to the point where we're on time. Again, we're not in any position, there's no risk because we're trying to do a year and a half in in a year and a half's worth of work in 1 year, that we get to the end of the year and we're still not done with what we started with.
No, I don't believe this year. It doesn't look like we have that substantial risk, and we've been looking carefully at the timing of things this year. We're a little behind where I might like to be on the water main and concrete paving project, but we're still planning on getting that bid in April. So I don't believe, whether we do or don't take advantage of the extension pricing here, there shouldn't be any reason that we should fall behind this year's schedule. We have a couple of projects that we're, well, one in particular that we're deliberately waiting to do till later in the year, and that's the second phase of the St. Mary's Park project. But we'll still be bidding that within the next month or so as well. So we're pretty well in pretty good shape for all of this year's routine projects. The only one that I guess I would say, and I've telegraphed this to council through some of the biweekly updates. Jones Avenue is starting to become problematic from a timing standpoint, and I mentioned that in tonight's agenda item. And that's simply the federal process has gotten very onerous. And so, but that's not one where we're going to be at any type of risk. That project can happen in 2027 and not be a particular issue. As long as we get it obligated by July, we'll take advantage of all of our federal funding. So that may need to be delayed into 2027, but that doesn't have anything to do with the bid process. That's the fact that the feds basically told us, you're moving the road 40 feet, so now you need to do an archaeological dig and engage the tribes, and you can't clear SHPO until all of that clears, and then you can't program it until SHPO clears. So that critical path keeps getting extended out by the obstacles that they keep throwing in front of us. But that's really the only project that we would hope to have bid in 26 that we may not get to.
Okay. And that isn't because of contractor capacity, that's because of the other regulatory requirements as a result.
It's getting it through the process.
Okay, and if I could have one
sure.
follow-up question. The alternative to accepting the extension agreement with GV Cement would be to rebid the whole thing, in which case they probably would be the contractor that wins the bid again because of reasons that you've explained, and then we're just subject to whatever the new price of materials is.
That's probably correct. I think if we were to separate, to put the package that we would put in front of GV, and we would just bid that package, which we are prepared to do right now, as opposed to waiting a month, we more than likely they would be the low bidder on it, because on just concrete work they're gonna come in low every time, just based on where they're located and their efficiency of being able to do both the excavating work, storm installation, and the concrete paving, whereas most contractors will do a subcontractor to do part of that. So we're confident that they would be, if not the low bidder, very close in almost any circumstance that we would bid just that package. So.
Other questions? So I have one, Patrick. So I think about, as we've gone through this, and at times we have put out to bid, in the interim, when those continuations, I'll say, get presented, as we're talking about tonight, in that time frame, does the department get calls or inquiries about projects that may not be bid, but work that the city may be doing that they may like to bid on? Or, that they say, we have this is what we do, and do you have this kind of work? Do you engage in those kind of conversations? And, I'm just thinking the next that might be the one also, it would be a consideration to bring in some time, but not to the expense of some of the things in the conversations that occurred here.
Sure, no, and that's that's a totally legitimate question. We do, from time to time, we have contractors saying, hey, do you have anything going out of this type? I'll tell you, those calls have been a lot less frequent the last 10 years than they were. My first 10 years as director, we would have people that would just randomly show up at the counter and want to talk about everything they had and bring me their business card. And, we regularly, the trail project, I was pleased that we got 6 bids on it. But we very rarely have been getting 5 and 6 bids on most of our jobs lately. So it's not a lot. Some of it is, we're in that spot where the really big contractors aren't terribly interested in bidding our work. Particularly, no one wants to deal with the curbs, the drive approaches, all the little incidentals that come with urban work. That's our challenge most of the time when it comes to asphalt pavers, is that there's only a few real statewide big boys, if you will, and our work is too detailed. They don't want to manage the subs. They want to come in and just pave and go. But we, likewise though, our jobs are usually big enough that I'll call them the little startups. I don't want to say mom and pops, but that's because a couple of our contractors like GV kind of are mom and pops, but there aren't enough of them that are terribly interested in our jobs because of the bonding, because of the insurance, and in some cases the responsible bidder ordinance I don't think has really hampered our ability to get bidders very much. But there's a few that may just not lack the resources to be able to bid. So we're kind of in that middle ground that makes it a little more challenging. But yes, when the bidders come to us and contact us, we tell them these are the projects we have coming out. They'll be posted on Mitten. We want you to engage on them. And about half of the time they come in and submit a bid on the next job, and sometimes they don't. But we certainly are wanting to work with additional contractors, help broaden that pool a bit.
Thank you. In recent, I've seen some, the ones that we have bid, there's new names that we may not get on a regular basis. So, they're definitely looking. I think years past, it seemed to be more contractors that did work that would go out and find the subcontractors, and there was like a pool. And I think it's transitioned to where those that are contracting and using a subcontractor have a partnership established. And they may be, bringing each other to the table sometimes. But at the same time, I know we have an item on tonight's agenda about our trees and the tree purchase. And we have 3 separate contractors for the entire proposal that's before council, because they can provide a third and at the cost. And we were able to work that way and put 3, product delivery from a resource and they can't deliver all of it, but it gives us a chance to look at it all and then compare prices on the ones that may both. I recall last year was that way. Same tree was bid for different people, different contractors or companies, and they allowed the choice for the staff to select the one that was less, and yet all of them received work with the city.
Yeah, and it's nice when we can do that too. And with those nurseries, some of that has to do, moving to that, because I know that's an agenda item tonight as well. But with the nurseries that we have out there, sometimes it just boils down to they only have 15 available and we want 12, and there aren't 12 that we really want to buy. Right. We go look at the stock and say, it's kind of chintzy looking, so we only get 10 from them.
Like the calipers and the size and what we're looking for.
Yeah.
Okay. Other questions from council? Mike?
Just a comment, going back to, I do think the responsible contracting is working. I think part of the problem that we run into here is that some of these infrastructure projects, like you said, they're not quite to the size of the big cities. And in dealing with contractors, there's probably a lot of contractors that fit into this thing. It's just they're not from around here. And trying to get them to mobilize, and with gas prices, you're just not going to get them here. And I think that's why we've been successful with the ones we've been using. Because they are close.
Yeah, I think that's a big part, Councilman. I would agree with that we always talk about the downriver boys. There's 3 concrete contractors that we've worked with in the past downriver. They're all sort of related to each other, but that's within shouting distance of Monroe. They're willing to do that. But likewise, the same contractor from Brighton isn't going to make the trip. Now, a larger outfit like Fonson, and that is an example of a company that hadn't bid for a while, was like second low on a lot of things, and they did win the St. Mary's Park project in the Battlefield parking lot, and they've worked out very well. So now we have another bidder that keeps throwing in bids on our larger jobs. But to your point, that it's the smaller ones that they just can't make the mobilization work and that. But no, I would agree. The responsible bidder process hasn't really hampered, in my opinion, from what I can tell, our ability to get anybody in here because it's a reasonable bar, and we haven't disqualified a lot of bidders on that. So I don't think that's really scaring them away too much on that. There could be a few on the smaller side that don't bother, but we'll never know. But I don't think it's been a material problem for us.
I think another part of that is through the responsible bidder is some of the companies we had, it had them to move out a little bit outside their arena or comfort zone to find some others that would come in and do the work with them, so they qualify as a whole.
Right.
Okay. I don't see any other questions. Thank you, Patrick.
All right. Well, then I'll look to formalize those agenda items for the next meeting, and you'll have those on the action. So I appreciate your time and your input as always.
Okay.
Thanks.
Clerk, I don't see any other items, correct?
There are no other items.
Manager Robinson, we still have some time. Any thoughts or items you want to bring forward?
Actually, there is, and this is, I was kind of hoping we'd have a few minutes here because I'm hoping to get your direction and feedback on this topic, and it is about the charter amendments. There was discussion from several council members during our January 10th work session where we were establishing our goals and objectives. Is one of the tasks or one of the things that they were interested in was looking at potential charter amendments, and specifically the one that and they talked about that one, and yes, we all agree that our charter could use updating just from the basic, the proper pronoun usage, proper, the proper designation of certain things. There are some things from basic English that should be updated. But the one topic that came up, and when I just recently sent you all an email also asking for your input on items that you would be interested in, and Councilmember Stringham did respond to my email and said that something that was talked about, which was brought up in the work session, was the term limits that city council serves. Now, as everybody knows, you are all on the exact same 2-year election schedule, both with the clerk and with the mayor. And yes, that could be problematic from certain perspectives of, oh my gosh, is everybody got decided not to run, or everybody, it would be a brand new everybody, which is, would be kind of difficult for the administration. We'd get through it, I'm sure, but it would be a very difficult thing. And I think that there are some strong arguments to look at changing that, but I think we also have to talk, and I'm hoping that you'll discuss it amongst, and on our discussion tonight with the time that we have, is really look at some of the items that would be perplexing. Because if you're going to have 4-year terms, is that everybody's going to move to a 4-year term and it's the same situation? Or are we looking at having staggered terms where you would have 3 council members that would in the next election potentially run for a 2-year term and 3 members run for a 4-year term? And how would you determine who does what? What is the fair practice? What is the fair way? And there is actually a ton of research that would need to be done at any of these suggestions. And how is it by who gets the most votes? Is it by who's been on council the longest? Is it by voluntary? Is it by picking straws out of a hat? I mean, that's one of those things to where I think for me to be able to do research, if that's something that the council really wants me to work on, I'm going to need some direction on what you're looking for and what your opinions are on this so that I know the right resources to reach out to. I have contacted some members of through the MML who is going to look to see who else has gone through this within the last 5 to 10 years. So we could have kind of an example or something. And I've also reached out to another colleague that from a different law firm that I had work on some charter amendments before in a different position. But I'm all ears open to what your suggestions are when we talk about charter amendments, because the clerk was nice enough, and I provided that in the email. There are very specific time limits, and there are steps when you change a charter that where it has to go to the Attorney General's office, has to be signed off by the governor's office and all that before it could be, all within specific time periods. So it's really important that if this is something we're serious about, we need to let me know now so I can get that work going to where we're ready for either an August or November election.
Thank you. So as we recall back on our work session on January 10th, as the manager said, one of the items that came up in discussion was the council term in office of 2 years, and not much more conversation about it. I know that some of you may have had a chance to talk with the mayor or the manager. I know I did have sent an email as a follow-up, but and about having some conversation. If we recall past years, we had also the eligibility for elections in the city and to be city council. Of course, that was on a ballot initiative and it was rejected by the voters. So I'm not saying we do it again. I'm just saying that that's one of the things that I think about when we put forward a ballot initiative. And I'm trying to recall if there was other topics that were on council's mind during the work session that we just may not have written down as one of the priorities, but something of a topic. The manager's correct. There's a timeline to get this done. We were sent that. I have a belief that if we're putting ballot initiatives out, it should be on the November election when the majority of people that do vote. Otherwise, we're just trying to find one who get the lesser amount of votes. And the more that, whatever we do, I think you want to have the best turnout possible. I've thought about this for years, and we talked about this in past councils as well. And then I start thinking, what's the pros and cons? And I think there's many ways to look at this, shifting to a 4. I know, as the manager said, that we probably want to get some examples of communities that have shifted to the staggered terms of 3 and 3 of the council. Some keep the mayor as 2, some make it 4. I think that's wouldn't be to my liking. I just think, how do you put more in one voting time than the other? Or maybe it's just as is where we stay, or there's always, the 4 years. But if it's all the same, it doesn't address maybe the issue of a concern. But I'm not saying there's concerns as much as, is it something? We're looking for council's input. I've got several things, but I thought I'd wait and see if there's comments from council on this first. Kathy?
So I responded when it was brought up, just because when I think about as the newbie on the panel here, I would not want to be the newest person on the group. So if there was a way to, and I know it's going to be a little painful to get through it, but in the end, if it was staggered, I feel like it would be better for the city, because you have that history, you have that knowledge, and it would not be a potential of every single one of us being brand new. Because I know I wouldn't want to be the only person left and the newest person just a year in. So that's just my thoughts.
Other thoughts? Andrew?
I completely see the length of experience argument in having some institutional knowledge in the board, and I think that we do have that, and I think that there's a lot of benefit to that, having served in that capacity. But 2-year terms, I think, allow us to be very accountable to the public that we serve. And I think that every election that we have, they can turn around and say, I hate what the city council is doing, to heck with all of them. We're going to have a totally new city council. And the public has that ability and authority every single election to turn around and totally change the makeup of the city council. And I think that their ability to make that change is fundamental to the accountability and the transparency that we hold so dear here on council, and why we think it's so important to ensure that we are being representative of the public that we're serving. I think 2-year terms are a pain in the butt, but they're a pain in the butt for us. I don't think that they're a pain in the butt for the community. I think the community really appreciates the opportunity that they have to vote on everyone who's going to stand up and serve them every 2 years. And I think that there has been a fairly high incumbency rate on the reelection of the candidates that have served this council. And I don't think that's totally surprising, the fact that the public is reelecting to serve as people who they've elected to service in the past. I don't think that any of us should be surprised by that. But I think that trust goes both ways. For the public to have an active decision, an active change-making component to their decision-making process, and being able to determine who represents them, and being able to determine if they want the same people and they want that experience, which I think are benefits. I don't, there are mumblings nowadays that there didn't used to be in the past of, having experience in public service is a bad thing. I don't agree with that at all. People running on the fact that they have never served in public office, I don't see that as a positive thing. You wouldn't want to hire a plumber who doesn't have experience being a plumber. And I think the same holds true here. But I think it should be up to the public to make that decision for themselves every 2 years.
Mike?
I agree with a lot of what Andrew just said, and, you know, part of it is, as people that have to run every 2 years, it's on us, you know, we're the only ones I would think that would have a problem with it. And it does, I won't say it's not something I look forward to is having to run every 2 years, but I understand why it is. Talking about, all of us or several of us coming off the board at the same time, well, that'll be up to the voters, but I don't so much worry about that because I look at the experience and the amount of longevity that we have on this council. So, and then I'll say I would have to think more about the staggered terms. I don't think I would like that. I like the way it is set up now. So,
Well, I guess I'll go ahead, Michelle.
I guess I'd be curious to see the numbers when the county did this, because I know that we went from 2 to 4, and what the stats were when they did that, because that was not that long ago. And maybe we could find out the numbers and how the public actually feels in the county and go from there. So I'm not sure about the staggered thing. I'd have to think about that one, but I'd be interested in those numbers.
Sure. Kelly, go ahead.
I would like to see what that would look like, staggering terms. I know some communities go by the highest vote getters and things like that, but I'd have to really see some options, I guess, to wrap my brain around it. I know we talked about the 2-year terms being a little like as soon as we get into a project, it's time to start running again. But like Andrew said, that's more of pressure on us as opposed to the voters. But I kind of get what Miss Kathy is saying, Councilwoman Stringham is saying. So I'd want to see what a staggered term would look like, or what some other communities are doing in terms of how they cycle out candidates as far as term limits go.
Sure, I'll just say a lot of these are conversations that went on for other communities through the, which you talked with during our municipal league, at the conventions or the CapCon. You know, those that have gone where they just went to 4 and kept it the same. It seems a majority are staggered because they're trying to, it doesn't change the number of elections. You still have an election every 2 years, so there's no cost impacts there that would be favorable. It was the thought of how when there was a turnover in a particular community, and that's the voter's choice, but some left at the same time. So there were some growing pains there, but it doesn't mean people are. You hope they're running for election to be served in the city to serve the city, not themselves, and they'll learn and grow. So this has been a conversation that's come up for a while, and as I thought this through, it's just like, if you went staggered terms, and this is where I started, how would you pick the 3 precincts to combine with the other 3 precincts? And that's where some data and some knowledge you'd have to have. How many registered voters are in each of the precincts, and how many people generally vote in each precinct? And how do you balance that so you don't have one part of our community decide not to vote because it's not their council member? I'm not saying that occurs, but I kind of think of it as, is that occurring? We wouldn't know that. I know Bay City is probably the most recent I can think of, and that's been a couple elections ago. But there's many that have transitioned, and you think it's kind of a convenience in some sense if you went the change. But then we really got there's a lot of details for me is what's the impact if you did. And so I would hate to think that we'd get a lower voter turnout. If we got that, then we're not doing what we should be doing. I agree that the 2 years sometimes is difficult as we move forward, but this council and extended back to a previous council or 2, we started looking beyond just the year or 2. And I think this council has done a great job of the second year of our 2-year term, that we're not just waiting for the end of the election coming in November. We meet in January and we say, what have we achieved on our goals and objectives, and what are now the priorities of this second year of the term that we are going to achieve, knowing there's things in work, but can we push something off the list and make it successful? So I don't think the 2 years have been detrimental to getting things achieved. The other part is, when we just have one or 2 year budgets, right? Now we have 2 year, 3 year budgets. We have a 2 year forecast after that. We're looking 5 years out. We may be here in 5 years, we may not be in the seats, but at least we're leaving a budget behind that. Of course, the new council could change as it came up for the annual vote, but at least there's a structure in place. So I think we're operating like we're more than 2 years presented to us. So maybe if we could do it by then, that'd be great. Any questions? Oh, Mike, go ahead.
Just one more comment, Your Honor. And so also I'd like to say that I worry about the interest or involvement of constituents wanting to run if there was 4-year terms. I can say if you was asked probably the general person when the county commissioner seats are out, they wouldn't know, because sometimes I think when 4-year terms, that longevity, it starts to just kind of be like the norm, and they don't realize when the elections are. I think with a 2-year term, everybody knows when they are. And I can see that, we didn't have a lot of opposition to the people on this board, because I think they do believe that we do a good job. But I don't think we would have that same interest possibly with a 4-year term.
Thank you. Andrew, yeah, another final comment?
A short response to a comment that you made that I actually really appreciate and think is really important when we're talking about multi-year budgets and multi-year plans. And I think that those are very important and a positive thing that we do in the city, of having the city, of setting the city up to have a long-term strategy in terms of policy and strategic focus at the operational level, so that we're not just planning for next week. But I think that there does need to be a level of separation between the operations that are happening for the staff at City Hall, who are here for the duration, they're here for the long term, versus the council, where there's a little bit more churn, and rightly so. But in the same way, it's why I had the opposition to attaching the goals and objectives to the agenda items, because I think that the statements and the goals and objectives that are made by the councils that come through on a more temporary basis are a list of political objectives that set for the time, that are an aggregation of the feelings of that council as it comes through. And if you get a new council, those objectives should rightly change. If the public has decided to take a new track, we should not have the operational side of the city, of the institution of the city, of the policies of the city, be attached to the more temporary agendas of individual councils. That we need to separate those things. So while I think it's good that we have these longer term plans for the institutional side of the city, I think that needs to be separated from the more shorter term, limited in duration objectives of individual councils.
Yeah, I think though, while we think long-term, we have that, I think of our goals and objectives and some of the things that we've set. I guess I'd like to go back, 8 years ago and see what some of those goals and objectives are that don't appear today. It's not because everything's 100% achieved, it's just that the priorities change. And we knew that last year when it came to, with the council here, when housing became a very long discussions and what that looked like. And what it did is it did push us into looking for some adjustments, and the staff stepping forward and say, yeah, this is what we need to do to get their input of how we readjust, whether it be zoning, whether it be reviews and council or staff reviews and building and those type of things. But so I think we set what we think are the priorities that we pick up, whether it's in our conversation, seeing other cities, SEMCOG, Michigan Municipal League, and hear and watching legislators and either agreeing or disagreeing, and we have to take steps of how we think we want to, through zoning and through, local authority, of how we as a council take that understanding of what we're allowed and really mandated to do, and how we put those goals and objectives forward. So I think housing is an example that was last year and flowed through this year. And I think it'll continue through this term. It could be something for the next term, but maybe it won't be the top priority because we'll hopefully have made some successes, as we know that are already going on this year and were last year. For instance, Mason Run, we have another project that's supposed to start this year. We have one we're hopefully going to have come to completion here soon in the next few months. And maybe that's the start, that there's something, I can't tell you what the next item is going to be for sure, but I sometimes like to be surprised. I think that's something we've thought of, but maybe it does elevate to a higher position while we're in this term. So, and it's not like telling the operationals you're doing this, they're coming to us as well saying that I just, the presentation this evening, public safety. There's things I learned today in the public safety presentation on our work session about how we are operating and training. Some of those couple topics were discussed years ago, and especially I think about the paramedic standpoint. You had to be a paramedic to become a firefighter, and we recognize that we can continue to have a strong public safety department by training people and making a stronger educational opportunity. So I think that's things that are coming to us from the staff as well of our inquiry, and I think that's good. I'm not sure that exactly ties. I just think about what we do in the 2 years and how things can blend over to the next coming, but then there's always the opportunity to be fluid and change that when there's a priority item topic that comes forward. Okay, it's 18 after. I think we got 12 minutes. So thank you for the comments, Manager. If you have further, you can, hopefully the council members will send that. So
Thank you.
Clerk, anything further for you?
No.
Okay. All right, this time we'll close the work session and see you here in 12 minutes. Call the city council meeting to order. Clerk, please call the roll.
Here.
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 Clark.
Here, I'd ask we all please rise for the invocation. Remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
We have faith and hope in each other and our city. We ask for your guidance in the decisions that are made here this evening. We ask you to work for the welfare of this community and all its residents.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Clerk, first item, please.
The first item on the agenda is the approval of the regular agenda.
Manager Robinson, any adjustments to the agenda?
Administration has no adjustments to the agenda
Council,
tonight.
any adjustments to the agenda? If not, a motion for approval.
The regular agenda.
Motion from Councilman Hayter, supported by Councilwoman Steelgrave to approve the regular agenda. Clerk, please call the roll.
Vining? Germaini? Stringham?
Yes.
Felder?
Yes.
Hayter? Stillgrave? Mayor Clark.
Yes. Next item, please.
The next item is the approval of the consent agenda. And for item B, the approval of payments should read $1,593,762.33. 1,593,762.33.
Thank you. Are there any items on the consent agenda that council wishes to have pulled for further discussion? Sort of a long agenda this evening. Is there any items on the consent agenda the council wishes to have pulled? Seeing none, is there any items on the consent agenda those present here this evening wish to have pulled for discussion? I see many people here this evening, so on the consent agenda, when it's passed in one vote. If there's an item that's on the consent agenda that you wish to have a discussion about, it may be the change order, a bid award, or any item that shows on the consent agenda. We later have a council action. Those are taken individually. So I'll ask, is there any items on the consent agenda those present here this evening wish to have pulled for further discussion? Motion be in order. Councilman Felder.
Yes, Your Honor. I'd like to make a motion that all items on the consent agenda be accepted, placed on file, recommendations carried out, and resolutions adopted.
Motion by Councilman Felder, supported by Councilwoman Stringham, that all items on the consent agenda be accepted, placed on file, recommendations carried out, and resolutions adopted. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Vining? Germaini? Stringham? Felder?
Yes.
Hayter? Stillgrave? Mayor Clark.
Yes. Next item, please.
The next item is under presentations, communications, and public hearings. Item 5794, recognition of the 2025 Officer of the Year and Firefighter of the Year.
Thank you. Manager Robinson, comments or public safety directors or commanders?
Yes, Your Honor, I'd like to call Director Tolstead up to briefly introduce our honored guests and awardees tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Tolstead.
Honorable Mayor, City Council members, Clerk LaVoy, Chad Tolstead, your Director of Public Safety. I have some comments here tonight. I'm going to allow the Commander Lindsay and Commander Smiley to introduce our Officer of the Year and Firefighter of the Year, but I have a 2-minute warm-up and a 30-minute warm-up. I'm going to go with the 2-minute warm-up since it's going to be a long agenda tonight. But I'm grateful for the opportunity to be here in front of council tonight. I think this is about our 3rd or 4th year of doing this in front of council. It's been a nice addition to our department to recognize these individuals in the individual awards that they receive. But it also goes to recognize not just them individually, but it represents the hard work and the dedication to the professions as a whole in both the police and firefighters as well. We're proud to have them stand out in front of you tonight to represent what the bravest and finest are in the city here. With that, I will ask Commander Lindsay to come up and introduce our Officer of the Year.
Thank you.
Honorable Mayor, City Council, City Manager Robinson, Clerk LaVoy, Attorney Buds, I know you get left out a lot. I figured I'd catch you on this one. It's my pleasure to introduce the 2025 Police Officer of the Year for the Monroe Public Safety Department. But before I do that, I just wanted to go off on a side note here. We had 6 officers nominated this year, and of those 6 officers, multiple of them were nominated by multiple police officers. We normally have 1 or 2 that get nominated every year. We had officers that ranged from 2.5 years on the job to 13 years on the job, some being detectives and others being road patrol officers. These officers were all nominated by their peers for doing exemplary work throughout the year. As the commander that oversees all police operations, this makes me extremely proud of my staff and the hardworking men and women we have here in this department. But as for tonight, Juvenile Detective Tyler Kleinert was selected as the Officer of the Year for 2025. Detective Kleinert's been a member of the department for over 7.5 years. And in his time here, he's worked the road patrol, he's been a Manus detective, and he's now currently assigned as the juvenile detective in the Detective Bureau. So what makes Detective Kleinert so special and stand out amongst his peers? It's his traits and characteristics that he displays day in and day out. The characteristics you wish that you could mold every officer with the day you hire them. Detective Kleinert has consistently displayed strong leadership qualities, a sense of professionalism, a work ethic next to none. He always goes the extra mile, has strong critical thinking skills, and he has a tenacity to fight crime. Last year, Detective Kleinert handled 246 investigations, most of which were crimes involving children. He also handled several adult crimes also. And for those of you who don't understand what investigating crimes against children entails, it is by far the most grueling, emotional, and physically challenging job that you can do in this profession. It truly drains you. But let me tell you, besides all that, Detective Kleinert is one of the most focused and determined officers that I've ever worked with. Whether he's investigating crimes against innocent children, hunting down shooting suspects, or frequently catching walleye and deer hunting, Detective Kleinert's demeanor stays even keel, and he always gets the job done. For this reason, it is my pleasure to introduce Detective Tyler Kleinert, your 2025 Police Officer of the Year. Don't hold the glass. I'm just gonna set this here for you.
Mayor Clark, members of City Council, Clerk Lavoie, City Manager Robinson, and I'm not going to forget you either, Attorney Buds. Thank you guys for being here tonight in support of myself and firefighter Kegris for the Firefighter of the Year. Thank you. Firefighter Kegris, I just want to get this out of the way quick. Congratulations to you as well for Firefighter of the Year. Haven't been able to work with you too much on the fire ground, being in the Detective Bureau, but what I can see is never heard a single bad thing about you, and you're doing a great job doing training for us there at the station. So thank you. Keep up the good work. Now a little bit about myself. I just want to say I will truly not be who I would be today without some of the support people in my life. First off, I'm going to start off with my wife, Scout, for being supportive of me throughout my career, and especially this past year as a juvenile detective. She currently is not here with us tonight. She's at home doing what she does time in and time out, which is take care of our kids, especially a sick kid right now, for me to be able to be here tonight. So thank you. I also want to say thank you for my family, my mom, dad, sister, for making me who I am today, and as well as the officers, bosses throughout my career at MPD. You guys made me of who I am today. I know Commander Lindsay talked about some of the things that make me who I am, but I got those through working here at the city. So, Commander Wall, you are essentially the person that got me into the city here as a police officer. Some of you might not know this, but I was a police cadet prior to being an officer, and he's the one that kind of stuck his neck out for me when I was in community college. So thank you for getting me in here. It's been a great almost 10 years actually this June for me here. So, and I know you talked a little bit about the juvenile detective. That's my job for about the past year. And yes, it's probably been the most rewarding and most challenging year of my career. Just the day in and day out of some of the investigations of having to do with, but there's nothing better than being able to put a case like that together and put that individual away where he belongs. So with that being said, I will continue to make all of you proud and strive to continuously serve the citizens of Monroe to the best of my ability the rest of my career. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
Honorable Mayor, City Council, Clerk LaVoy, City Manager Robinson, and Mr. Buds. Scott Smiley, Fire Commander, Monroe Public Safety Department. I have the honor tonight of introducing our 2025 Firefighter of the Year, Lieutenant Cody Kegris. Cody is a native to Monroe, and after graduating from the Fire Academy, he found his home with us in September of 2022. Cody has been a solid member of this department and currently holds the rank of lieutenant, which allows him the opportunity to guide and mentor younger members of this department. Cody is our lead CPR instructor. He and his team have trained city employees and hundreds of citizens in the past couple years, and Cody is also part of the drone response team. Cody was nominated by his peers for his unwavering commitment to public safety, exceptional emergency medical skills. His positive daily attitude makes him a pleasure to work with, and he is well regarded for his teamwork, communication, and dedication to continuous training. On medical emergencies, Cody brings a wealth of expertise in advanced life support and consistently sets the standard for caring and compassionate care on EMS calls. It is my pleasure to introduce you, Firefighter of the Year, Lieutenant Cody Kegris. Please do not think badly of him of his tall stature.
I was born tall. Honorable Mayor, members of City Council, Clerk LaVoy, City Manager Robinson, City Attorney Buds. Good evening. Thank you for taking time to recognize public safety here in Monroe City and for allowing me the opportunity to stand before you tonight. It is truly an honor to be recognized as Firefighter of the Year. First, I want to congratulate Officer of the Year, Detective Kleinert, on their recognition tonight. Awards like this represents dedication, professionalism, and commitment that exists across our entire public safety team, and it's an honor to be recognized alongside of him. I would like to thank this Monroe City Fire Department, our leadership, my supervisors, and many mentors that have helped shape my career over the past several years. I've been fortunate to work with people not only who taught me the technical side of the job, but also what it truly means to serve the community. Before coming to Monroe, I spent almost 10 years working in public safety. Those experiences taught me a lot, but the last 3 years serving this city has been some of the most meaningful of my career. Monroe is my hometown. I was born and raised here. Having the opportunity to serve the community that helped shape me for who I am is something I take very great pride in every day. I also want to thank my family, especially my wife, Danielle, for the support that they give me. Anyone who works in this profession knows that the job comes with long hours, missed holidays, sometimes difficult calls that follow you home. The support of family is what allows us to keep showing up and serving every day. This award means a lot to me personally. It's important to say that no firefighter earns something alone. The fire service is built on teamwork. Every call we respond to, every fire we fight, every life we save, it's all done as a team. The men I work beside every day are some of the most dedicated professionals I have ever met. And this recognition reflects their support as much as anything I have done. One thing I've learned during my time in this profession is that the fire service is consistently evolving. The challenges we face today are different than they were 10 or 20 years ago. Because of that, we have a responsibility to keep improving in how we train, how we take care of each other, and how we serve the public. To me, leadership in the fire service isn't about rank and title. It's about the example we set for the firefighters around us and the standards we hold ourselves to every day. Culture is built in small amounts, in training when no one is watching, in mentoring young firefighters coming into the job, and in always looking for ways to improve how we do things. I'm proud to be part of a department that continues to push forward in that way. Our firefighters care deeply for this community, and they take that responsibility seriously. Serving the residents of Monroe is something I never take for granted. When someone calls 911, they are often experiencing one of the worst days of their lives. At that moment, when they are trusting us to show up prepared, professional, and ready to help, that trust is something we work every day to earn and maintain. So while my name may be attached to this award tonight, it truly represents the dedication of the firefighters standing behind me, the entire department working every day to protect this city. I want to thank the mayor and city council again for recognizing me for the hard work and for the Monroe City Fire Department and for your continued support of the Public Safety Department. That support helps ensure that we have the resources, training, and equipment necessary to serve the community effectively and safely. And finally, I want to thank the firefighters and officers here tonight who have come to support this recognition. It means a great deal to have the backing of the people you work beside. I'm proud to serve this department, proud to serve the city of Monroe, and grateful for this honor. Thank you very much.
So, Director Tolstead, some additional comments?
I don't know how much I can add to what the officer and firefighter you just said. Great job, you guys, and congratulations. Your Honor, if any you or in council members that have any comments now, we would certainly invite them while the officer and firefighter are still here.
Sure. The director and I were having a conversation just a couple days ago, and he says, it's interesting, we move on to the agenda and not everybody, many people leave their families because your opportunity to share that time and congratulate each other. But the council then makes comments at the end of the evening and nobody's here. That was here for this purpose of the recognition. So I said, absolutely, I'd offer the council the opportunity to make some comments if they wish to do so this evening. I will tell you that I'm going to start here because earlier this evening at our work session, we had a presentation from the Public Safety Department, and it was stressed about the work that's being done and the training that is being administered internally, but also the training that firefighters and public safety officers are getting outside, both on training for the day-to-day and how we're making sure that all have the skills and training opportunities, but also in leadership, management, and other aspects. Firefighter Kegris is correct. Things change in both police and fire from 10 years ago. And things you're learning today, it's not to say they weren't, they just may not have been present. 10 years ago was the same items. They had to be on top of what the training was. So my congratulations to both Lieutenant Kegris and Detective Kleinert for their achievement, but also the fact that you're working as a team, as I heard. And I look around the room and I see all those that support each other. So I want to thank all the firefighters and public safety officers that are here this evening in support of their friends and comrades. Any other comments from Councilwoman Stringham?
I'll just take this opportunity to also say congratulations. It doesn't, excuse me, it doesn't just happen. You work hard, and that's why you're nominated. And so hearing you, though, discuss that it's part of the team, because it is for this. So my family background, I have a lot of EMS, fire, a lot of that kind of stuff. So I know the sacrifices that all of you go through with these types of shifts and the challenges and the calls that you sometimes take home that you're not allowed to talk about, but they're still there. So thank you, very appreciated.
Thank you. Councilwoman Germaini?
Thank you. I just want to say that I've seen firsthand both departments working in congruency with each other, and I'm very proud of that. And I admire all of you for what you do, and you're always the first ones there whenever I call. I know that. Thank you for all your service.
Peter.
Thank you, Your Honor. Congratulations to both of you. Thank you for your service. And you've not only made your departments proud, but you've also made your city and your community proud. So thank you.
Councilwoman Stilgrave.
Well, I know firsthand how this went because Cody, you were injured on my fire that night 2 years ago almost. And you guys are all top notch. Every single one of you. Police, fire, everybody. We have the best. And I just want to congratulate you.
Councilwoman Viney.
Yes, I just want to congratulate you both. I don't think I've had the opportunity of working with the detective, but congratulations and keep up the good work. Lieutenant Cody, I've seen him a lot in the community, so I really want to extend my congratulations and respect towards what you do and how you interact with the public in the training and some of the other community service that you do. I just want to say that you both have men full of integrity in Commander Smiley and Director Tolstead. So you have some really great leadership to look up to. So keep up the good work. Thank you for your service.
Councilman Felder.
Congratulations both to Lieutenant Kagaris and Detective Kleinert. I understand that you're giving that congratulations back to the entire team. And I do think that we have two wonderful departments working for the city, and I love to see the spirit of service. But heck, you guys won, so, take a little credit for yourself. So to both of you and to the service of the entire department and all you guys working every day, the fine men and women that we have representing our city, thank everyone for your service. But gee, guys, congratulations.
I'll just say my congratulations again. And I think about the other officers and firefighters that were also nominated, and the continuous years of opportunity to see members of our departments that come forward and get recognition. And I know it is a team. I know it is teamwork because you rely on each other each and every day. One last thing about the work session that was earlier that's able to be seen. It is taped. But one of the things that stood out was the point that was made is we're bringing new people in and how we manage them through the process, and they're assigned to officers and firefighters from the first day they arrive, and they're not sworn officers or firefighters. They're there to learn, and then it gives us the opportunity, gives them the opportunity to see what we do and how professional our departments are. And also at the same time, as they move along, we have the opportunity to evaluate in the future of that come into the door as certified firefighters and officers. So and it's because of your work, of all of you in here in this room, that helped that process. So I just want to say thanks for that. Director Tolstead?
Thank you again, Your Honor, and City Council. Very proud of the department, very proud of the Lieutenant Kagaris and Detective Kleinert. I did tell everybody here that they are welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting tonight,
Absolutely.
Mayor. We are going to exit to go up to the third floor to get some pictures because we don't want to do it in the hallway, make a bunch of noise because we don't want to close the doors. Clerk Lavoie. So I appreciate the council's time tonight, Mr. Robinson, for you guys taking the time tonight to honor us, and I appreciate your comments.
Yeah, absolutely. Everybody's welcome to stay. And but I understand your opportunities with families and friends to share that moment collectively is completely understood. So, and I know that the gentlemen in the back and ladies that have duties this evening, that's why they're sitting in the back, because they're waiting for the call that may come. So, and we know that is often. So thank you all for your service. And thank you, Director Tolstead and Commander Lindsay and Commander Smiley. Thank you.
Congratulations.
I'll give a second here, clerk, as I
Well done.
find my agenda again.
Thank you.
Good job, thank you.
That's clearing it out.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Clearing it out faster than deviled eggs.
Clerk, next item, please.
The next item on the agenda is item 5792. We're still under presentations, communications, and public hearings. Citizens Planning Commission 2025 Annual Report.
Manager Robinson, is that a communication and presentation this evening?
Be a communication to be placed on file.
And I appreciate the staff recognizing these annual reports that we're to receive and to have the 2025 Citizens Planning Commission Annual Report for our review, but also to be accepted here. It does not take council action, so just by being on the agenda, it becomes part of the record the clerk will then see to. Next item, please.
The next item, well, actually, we did put a motion on, now that I'm seeing that,
Oh,
now
we
that
did?
I'm flipping the
Okay.
agenda over, so I guess I would ask Matt Buds if that's,
We're looking for then a motion to accept the Citizens Planning Commission 2025 Annual Report. Yes, Councilwoman Vining?
I move to receive and place on file the 2025 Citizens Planning Commission Annual Report.
Motion by Councilwoman Vining, supported by Councilwoman Steelgrave on the Citizens Planning Commission 2025 Annual Report. Clerk, please call the roll.
Jermaine.
Yes.
Stringham. Yes. Felder.
Yes.
Hayter. Stillgrave. Mayor Clark.
Yes. Next item, please.
T recommendation for Bonnie Weber.
Thank you. Manager Robinson?
Yes, Your Honor, and in looking at this item in the communication section, I believe this is something that we may have to take action on, as it is something that the LET has put forward Ms. Bonnie Weber to fill the vacant LETC at large board member position. But according to their interlocal agreement with us and Frenchtown Township, we have to, the council has to approve the person they put forward for the LETC board. So rather than it just being a communication to council that that's who they're putting forward, it appears that we do actually have to make a motion to approve Bonnie Weber to be the person to fill the vacant LETC board.
Thank you. And this item, of course, is filling the at-large board member position, not the one that's coming from one of the government entities, but it is really the representative for the communities. Councilman Hayter?
Your Honor, I'd like to make a motion to accept the recommendation from Mercury Transit to appoint Bonnie Weber to their board.
Motion by Councilman Hayter, supported by Councilwoman Germanian, item 5775, LET recommendations for Bonnie Weber. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Vining. Yes. Germaine. Yes. Stringham. Yes. Felder.
Yes.
Hayter.
Yes.
Stillgrave.
Yes.
Mayor Clark.
Yes. Next item, please.
Item is item 5754, first public hearing on the proposed CDBG 2026-2031 Consolidated Plan and 26 through 27 Annual Action Plan.
Thank you. Manager, we have no item to start with. I'll just call the public hearing.
Just go ahead with the public hearing, sir.
This time, I'll open the public hearing on item 5754, public hearing on the proposed CDBG 2026-2031 Consolidated Plan and the 2026-27 Annual Action Plan. Any comments from those present here this evening for this public hearing? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Next item, please.
The next item is item 5777, public hearing for PA 146 Oprah application for 101 West First Street, and there are no comments on file in the clerk's office.
Thank you. I know this comes on the agenda later, but this time is the public hearing for that. So this time I'll open the public hearing for item 5777, public hearing for PA 146 Oprah Obsolete Property Rehabilitation Act application for 101 West First Street. Any comments from those present hearing regarding this public hearing? I'll close the public hearing. I guess I should ask also if there's a comment from council on this item. Seeing none?
The next item is under council action. It's item 5778, resolution to approve PA 146, obsolete property rehabilitation certificate, 101 West First Street.
Manager Robinson.
Yes, Your Honor, this is the actual action from the public hearing that we just had, and we had as a work session item in our last council meeting. But this is for the acceptance of the Oprah abatement certificate and redevelopment project at 101 West First Street. As we all remember, Mr. Castiglione, Properties LLC, he took ownership of 101 West First back in October. He has worked really hard. Him and his previous partner have split the business. And now he is looking, originally they had a 6-year Oprah on the previous business, and now he is looking to extend it to the maximum allowable amount, which is a 12-year Oprah. So it's the remaining 6 years he's seeking for the wonderful work that he has done and continues to do on his building. As I know in the packet, there was plenty of pictures, and as well as the staff analysis, is the recommendation to approve this.
And this was also went to the Economic Development Review Committee.
Yes.
Prior to this as well. Any questions from council regarding this project? I do appreciate the photographs that came with this. I mean, it's a significant difference from what it used to be. If there's no questions or comments, Councilwoman Stilgrave?
I'm gonna make a motion that City Council adopt the attached resolution transferring the Oprah certificate for 101 West First to Castiglione Properties LLC and extending the certificate for an additional 6 years for expiration date of December 31st, 2032.
Support.
Motion by Councilwoman Stilgrave, supported by Councilwoman Stringham. Item 5775, the resolution to approve the obsolete property rehabilitation certificate for 101 West First Street. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Vining?
Yes.
Germaini?
Yes.
Stringham?
Yes.
Felder?
Yes.
Hayter?
Yes.
Stillgrave?
Yes.
Mayor Clark?
Yes. Next item, please.
The next item is item 5734, spring 2026 tree purchase.
Thank you. Manager Robinson?
This did get touched on a little bit in the work session with Director Lewis, but this is for our annual tree planting that we do every year, and it consists of 140 total plantings. And as you had mentioned, in that they are coming from 3 different vendors for specific species and the quality, in order to make sure that we have what our city uses, and our arborists and tree commission weighs in on the type of trees and what we're doing. And I think it's really important, in the packet that they list where a lot of these trees are going, and many of them, I think you'll notice, are along the 3rd Street corridor, leading into the Orchard East neighborhood, where there was a street project last year that kind of shrunk the size of the street and added size to the area between the sidewalk and the road, and these plantings will be great for replacing. And by the variety, there's definitely a lot of variety, and I don't know how to pronounce the majority of them, but some scientist knows what they do. So, and then we're asking your approval for the 2026 tree purchase.
Before we take a motion, I'll see if there's any comments from council, but one item regarding, I just want to thank the forestry supervisor as well as our tree commission for their work done on this. But, I can't, I have to also mention through our GIS employees here, you can, any resident or person can go onto the city's website, look into the tree inventory. You can find out what tree by just hitting the dot in front of your house, if it's in the city terrace. and tell you what kind of tree it is. If you have a tree that's not surviving, you can call in and ask for a replacement, and you can go to the tree inventory and see what's available, types of trees and which might work. And they're not too tall if there's wires, or how they grow by the width of the sidewalk street. And so those are things that are in place that weren't in the past, and I think it helps understand why the type of trees we have and the opportunities the residents have for input. So with that, looking for a motion regarding the tree purchase. Councilwoman Germain.
Move that the city council approve an expenditure of up to $11,628 for the purchase of 55 trees from North Branch Nursery, the expenditure of up to $12,007 for the purchase of 53 trees from Ray, I don't want to butcher his name, but Wigandis Nursery, and the expenditure of up to $6,570 for the purchase of 32 trees from Elminger Ornamentals for the 2026 Spring Planting Program, that up to $32,000 in total be authorized to include a small contingency, that the Director of Engineering and Public Services or its designee be authorized to enter into necessary agreements or purchase orders on behalf of the city, that the formal competitive bidding process be waived, and that the finance director be authorized to make any budget transfers that are necessary to complete this purchase.
Motion from Councilwoman Germain, supported by Councilman Felder on item 5734, the spring 2026 tree purchase. Clerk, please call the roll.
Vining. Germaine.
Yes.
Stringham.
Yes.
Felder.
Yes.
Hayter.
Yes.
Stillgrave.
Yes.
Mayor Clark.
Yes. Next item, please.
The next item on the agenda is item 5765, authorization to purchase and install cameras at Carnes Park.
Manager Robinson.
Yes, Your Honor, as Director Tolstead had put this item through and working through the IT with the county, this is for the placement of 3 different cameras, the procurement and placement of 3 different cameras, the Mercaki cameras, in order to best serve that park in the total amount of $21,625, which includes a $2,000 contingency, and included in your packet was a map that kind of showed where in the park that those cameras would be located.
Any comments or questions from council? If not, a motion be, Councilman Stringham, sorry.
Sorry, I'll move to approve authorization for the Director of Public Safety, Chad Tolstead, to sign the Sentinel Agreement for the purchase of cameras and related equipment for installation at Carnes Park in the amount of $15,704, and authorize a transfer from Capital Projects Fund balance in the amount of $5,660. Additional project costs include CDW-G $700.48, installation by Access Alarm $2,300, and ancillary equipment including a network switch $199, patch panel $21,000, UPS $480.65, and 6U rack $219.83. Total project cost, including contingency, is $21,625.
Motion by Councilwoman Stringham, supported by Councilman Hayter on item 5765, authorization to purchase and install cameras at Carnes Park. Clerk, please call the roll.
Vining. Germaine.
Yes.
Stringham.
Yes.
Felder.
Yes.
Hayter. Stillgrave.
Yes.
Mayor Clark.
Next item, please.
The next item is item 5761, pine tree replacement.
Manager Robinson.
An exciting one. As we all know, the tree that we have been using as the tree lighting tree that is actually located on county property just west of where we sit right now. I'm sure we've all noticed it's seen its better days, and our arborist has checked the tree and says, yes, it is in its final years of decline. And, because that tree has become so meaningful to our celebratory holiday lights and tree lighting that we do, and which has grown in popularity, has grown in attendance over the last several years, the tree lighting committee, some of them had some great ideas and said, how about if we replace it? So we did quite a bit of research, our arborist, we found a replacement tree, which is a 24-foot Norway spruce from Green Acres Tree Farm in Waterford, Michigan. And the whole idea is we wanted a tree big enough to where it's, it's noticeable, but we wanted it with the best potential survivability rate when you transplant a tree of that size. And I think in working with the folks from Green Trees and the expert abilities of our DPW forestry department, I think that we have a good possibility for a great tree that could last years and years to come. And granted, it's not 50 feet, it's 24 feet, so it'll be a little bit of time and a little bit of growing space. And I will say that the county has been wonderful in working in partnership with us on this, as they are, we help pick the spot. You'll see the stake that's out in the middle thing is that where we have to move it, because we want to make sure we're not interrupting irrigation lines, electrical lines, gas lines, and all of those things. And we're really excited as this tree comes with a 1-year warranty, and this farm actually comes out and does checks 3 times throughout the year with all sorts of additive type plant-based, the wild chemistry of organic chemistry to make sure that this tree survives. So, and we're asking for your approval to procure this and allow us to do the 50% deposit in order for us to set the date.
I'll make an additional comment because Manager Robinson is correct. Not only is it the tree, it's that the company that's coming, ensuring that it is survives, coming back through the year, and if there, and with the, I'll say the insurance side of that, if it's not, they will replace it if it does not make it by the fall. We did receive a couple of people that had an interest of donating a tree, but then what soil that's coming from may not be equitable to the soil in which we're placing it. That was one concern. And the other is the fact that if it doesn't, they would survive by the end of the summer. Then we're back where we started from, and we have to start over with the costs and that. But we have a company that has done this before and has provided trees and size. Comments or questions from council, or a motion regarding this item? Councilman Hayter.
I move the city council approve an expenditure up to $16,500 for the purchase of a 24-foot Norway spruce from Green Acres Tree Farm to replace the current tree being removed, that up to $16,500 in total be authorized to include a small contingency that the Director of Engineering and Public Services or his designee be authorized to enter into any necessary agreements or purchase orders on behalf of the city, that the Finance Director be authorized to make the budget transfers that are necessary to complete the purchase, and that a 50% deposit check be cut to schedule the planting date.
Support.
Motion by Councilman Hayter, supported by Councilwoman Steelgrave on item 5761, pine tree replacement. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Vining?
Yes.
Germaini?
Yes.
Stringham?
Yes.
Felder?
Yes.
Hayter?
Yes.
Stillgrave?
Yes.
Mayor Clark?
Yes. Next item, please.
The next item is 5780, first reading of ordinance 26-03 to amend city code, section 22-19, CPC term limits.
Manager Robinson.
Yes, Your Honor, this is the first reading of the ordinance regarding the elimination of the term limits for the CPC. It was determined, and we talked about this in a work session last session, and the CPC is the only board and commission or authority of the city that has term limits that are actually established by an ordinance. And we're asking to have that removed from the ordinance and to make the amendment to the ordinance to where those term limits would not be enforced through the ordinance.
So this evening is the setting of the public hearing that will appear on April 6th.
Yes.
Comments or questions? If none, a motion would be, Councilwoman Germain.
Move that the city council place ordinance 26-03, an ordinance to amend section 22-19 of chapter 22, boards, commissions, authorities, and committees of the Code of the City of Monroe on the floor for its first reading, and schedule the second reading and public hearing for Monday, April 6, 2026 at 7:30 PM.
Motion by Councilwoman Germaine, supported by Councilwoman Stilgrave on item 5780, the first reading of ordinance 26-03 to amend City Code Section 2219, the CPC term limits. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Vining?
Yes.
Germaine? Yes. Stringham?
Yes.
Felder?
Yes.
Hayter?
Yes.
Stilgrave?
Yes.
Mayor Clark? Ordinance 26-03, Chapter 22, Boards, Commissions, Authorities, and Committees. An ordinance to amend Section 22-19 of Chapter 22, Boards, Commissions, Authorities, and Committees of the Code of the City of Monroe.
Thank you. Next item, please.
The next item is item 5766, schedule public hearing on the Michigan CDBG Disaster Recovery Grant applications.
Manager Robinson.
Yes, Your Honor, as I know this item is just to schedule a public hearing, but I think I'd like to ask Director Cochran to come up and explain a little bit, because as you go through CDBG, we've seen a lot of CDBG stuff over the last couple agendas, and I want to make sure that there are differences between the items that come before you.
Mr. Cochran.
Mayor, City Council, Clerk Treasurer Lavoy, Mark Cochran, Assistant City Manager and Director of Economic and Community Development. So as the City Manager indicated, there have been a lot of CDBG acronyms flying around. The city does receive our own allocation of CDBG, Community Development Block Grant, federal funds from the U.S. Housing and Urban Development Administration. Annually, it's about $450,000, and that's what the public hearing earlier tonight was to lay out the plan for how we will allocate those dollars. But back in 2023, 2024, the city was part of a presidential natural disaster declaration when we experienced severe flooding, and as part of that, the HUD, U.S. Housing and Urban Development Administration, provided through congressional funds about $43 million to the state of Michigan through the MEDC, the Michigan Economic Development Corporation, to help with recovery and future resiliency for future natural disasters and to recover from that natural disaster. These funds, the $43 million, are only available to be spent in Monroe, Oakland, and Macomb County. So we are one of 3 out of 83 counties that are eligible to tap into $43 million as a result of that. So they are being treated as community development block grant dollars. In the state, we've been a partner at the table with the MEDC since they got these funds. They went through the exact process that we started tonight. They had to hold a public hearing and develop a plan, just like you held a public hearing for tonight, to gather ideas for projects that communities are looking at. We provided some early preliminary discussions or ideas with them as they were developing their funding priorities. And what they've done through this year is allocate about $34.8 million in new infrastructure improvement dollars, and then about $6.5 million that are available for planning projects. These funds, because they're disaster recovery, there is no match. And so what we've met with them about looking what the eligible projects are, we are preparing to submit a project through the infrastructure funding to address the flooding issues that have plagued the Orchard East neighborhood whenever we have high rain events, to look at development of a plan to address that flooding, and then also move toward implementing future corrections necessary. Again, that's to address future flood hazards. And then the other part that we're applying for out of the planning dollars, the $6.5 million, is an application to update the city's comprehensive master plan. We are required by the Michigan Planning Enabling Act to update the comprehensive master plan every 5 years with the Planning Commission and the public. The last time ours was done was 2017. However, we have added different plans to it, like the Orchard Neighborhood Plan, the Heritage Corridor Master Plan, but it's time to crack the full thing open because a lot has changed in Monroe since 2017. It is going to be about $150,000 to $180,000 project for us to do it fully right with a lot of public engagement. And so we've talked with the MEDC about the eligibility for that project. And as long as we include resiliency in the master plan, it will be an eligible project. So the first step for us to submit that application is for City Council to have a public hearing on the future application, including those two projects, and that is what you're scheduling this evening. Or we're asking to schedule this evening.
Thanks, Director Cochran. Questions from council? Any thoughts? If not, this is up to set the next scheduled public hearing. Councilwoman Stringham.
I'll move to schedule the public hearing on proposed CDBG-DR grant applications for April 20th, 2026 at 7:30 PM.
Motion by Councilwoman Stringham, supported by Councilwoman Germani on item 5766, schedule public hearing on the Michigan CDBG disaster recovery grant applications. Clerk, please call the roll.
Vining? Yes. Germani?
Yes.
Stringham?
Yes.
Felder? Yes. Hayter? Yes. Stillgrave?
Yes.
Mayor Clark?
Yes. Next item, please.
Next item is item 5753, right-of-way construction procedures for telecommunication providers.
Thank you, Manager Robinson.
Yes, Your Honor, as we had a wonderful presentation by Director Lewis at the last work session regarding the needs for us to come up with a policy of how to deal with the telecommunications providers, as we are being inundated right now with 3 separate companies who are, through the Metros Act, have initiated putting in fiber optic cable within our city. And because of our limitations in our right-of-ways, because of the size and scope and the very aged and unique right-of-way things that currently exist from the public utilities and private septic and sewer lines and water leads, et cetera, that we felt it was really important for us to be able to have a policies that we hold these companies that are applying to have them follow, so that when they do, for example, if they are putting underground fiber optic into a neighborhood and they hit a water line, that they're going to be responsible for their repairs, et cetera. And I think it was a good presentation that he gave before. Do you have anything else you'd like to add on this, Director Lewis? And this is actually the procedure that was presented to you at the work session, and we're looking for your permission and your support for this tonight.
There's no questions or comments. This is up for council's action. Councilman Hayter?
Move that the permit requirements for telecommunications providers be adopted, and that the Director of Engineering and Public Services or his designee be authorized to make minor amendments to the policy as necessary in the future.
Motion by Councilman Hayter, supported by Councilwoman Stillgrave on item 5753, right-of-way construction procedures for telecommunication providers. Clerk, please call the roll.
Yes.
Germani?
Yes.
Stringham? Yes. Felder? Yes. Hayter? Yes. Stillgrave?
Yes.
Mayor Clark?
Yes. Next item.
The next item is item 5732, Loop Greenway Trail Extension Contract Award.
Manager Robinson.
Director Lewis speak to this one, as he alluded to it at the beginning and earlier in his presentation with the Loopway, the good note on the bids that we got on this.
Director Lewis.
Council, Clerk Treasurer, City Manager, City Attorney, Patrick Lewis, Director of Engineering and Public Services, Interim Director of Water and Wastewater Utilities. Yes, I'm happy to say our first large project bid of the year came back very favorably. We had 6 bidders on this one. We actually had to duke it out for the last 2 spots here. ER Zeiler Excavating was the low bid at $770,000 and change, and they beat out Salon Bean Trucking and Excavating. It was at $778,000, and our estimate was around $1 million. So They're hungry for this type of work, and I think this was one of those projects too where they looked to put their company's name on something that was going to get a lot of favorable press, because it is something that's going to be, the city's been looking forward to for a long time. The project, as you may be familiar, is we're still searching for a good name for this trail, and we're going to be continuing to work on that. For now, we're kind of calling it, the plans called it the Loop Trail Greenway Extension, and that would be taking off from where the county's project ended at 5th and Rosler, following more or less the old Michigan Southern Railroad line until you get through the Spectrum Foods property, and then it'll swing kind of northwards towards Front Street. We are obviously continuing to look at ways to enhance that bike facility into the downtown in the future. So we have a couple other components of this award besides just the low bid award. Oh, I should mention too that this was a lot of the funding from this came from a Spark grant from the DNR. That again, our Economic and Community Development Department just keeps bringing home the grant funding here, which keeps the engineering department in business. So we're happy to have that. But there's a $900,000 grant that will pay most of the costs. Obviously, there are design costs on this. So there's two other components to the award tonight besides just simply the low bid, and that is that we are directly purchasing from Pentura, which is our kind of our play equipment and other amenity suppliers. They are through a Sourcewell, which is a statewide pooled contract bid. So we usually work directly with them, and we get a savings from that. And by purchasing directly from them, we can save on the sales tax as well. So that's kind of a discrete item that they'll put into the project. So we have the base for that exercise equipment as part of the construction contract, and they're going to furnish and install the rest of the equipment itself. So we do have an award recommendation for Pentura, basically $200,000. It's like $199,000 and change. And then lastly, I'm asking you to authorize, although we're trying our best not to have to use all of it, we're still looking at how we are going to staff all of our construction projects this year. We think we're going to be able to be generally okay, but we are, because of Mr. LeBeau's promotion to the Assistant Director of Water and Wastewater Utilities, we have a vacancy in the project engineer position. So until that's filled, and Zyler does want to start fairly soon. Until that's filled, we may have a little bit of need for some on-site inspections. So we did request the Manikin Smith Group because they were the designers. We need them for surveying, layout, and some shop drawing review anyway, but we're going to try to keep that number below the $125,000 that we're requesting by being able to inspect it with some of our own staff as the year goes on. So really 3 components to this award, and the nice part about this is that because the project bids were under budget and we have the $900,000 Spark grant, we have more than adequate funding in the Trails project that we've been setting aside for a couple of years. So it's fully funded, and we're looking forward to this exciting project.
Excellent. Questions or comments from Mr. Lewis? Councilman Stringham?
I'm excited about it because I like to get out and use these kind of trails. How do we have it outlined how, and maybe I just missed it, where it goes through the city, downtown? Or where does it end?
It's going to, and I think you've acted on some property acquisition in the past on this. The end point is going to be basically in front of Spectrum Foods on Front Street.
Okay.
So there'll be a crosswalk that'll cross to the other sidewalk on there. That's where it's going, the off-street trail portion is going to end. And I mentioned that we're going to continue to work on connections to the downtown, whether that be on-street bike lanes, better marking, better signage. Some other options may present themselves in the future, but we're continuing to take bites at this apple and get closer and closer to connecting to downtown. But so the end point on the west will be Rosler Street and 5th, and it'll run along the north side of 5th Street until it hits that old rail corridor, and then it'll run kind of diagonally from there, cutting through across Adams Street, and then swinging to a north-south alignment through Spectrum Foods, the western edge of their property, along with that. And I would note that one of the streets that we're doing this year is Adams Street between 4th and Front, partially designed to complement this project because we don't want to spend $1 million plus on an overall trail project and have it cross a street that's in terrible shape. So that was all. We do a lot of oversight and a lot of overthinking of these projects, but that's we're going to try to tackle that all at once this summer.
Other questions? Not, Councilman Stringham?
I'd be glad to make a motion. Move that a contract for the City of Monroe Loop Greenway Trail Project be awarded to E.R. Zyler Excavating, Inc. in the amount of $770,688 that a total of $885,000 be encumbered to include a 15% contingency, that the mayor and city clerk treasurer be authorized to execute the contracts on behalf of the city, that a purchase order in the amount of $199,836.05 be authorized to Pentura LLC for exercise equipment and related items, that a professional services contract in the amount of $125,000 be, including contingencies, be authorized to Manick and Smith Group, that the Director of Engineering and Public Services be authorized to execute this agreement on behalf of the city, and that the Director of Finance, Assistant City Manager be authorized to make any necessary transfers.
Motion by Councilwoman Stringer, supported by Councilwoman Germaine on item 5732, the Loop Greenway Trail Extension Contract Award. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Vining? Yes. Germaine?
Yes.
Stringham?
Yes.
Felder?
Yes.
Hayter? Yes. Sealgrave? Yes. Mayor Clark?
Yes. Thank you. Next item, please.
The next item is item 5736, Jones LaPleasant's realignment, change order to professional services agreement.
Robinson, and I see Director Lewis is still here.
I'm still here, and I would like to apologize for the length of all the motions that I seem to give you all the time. We get to a certain point where I just put it in a resolution, but I like the public to be able to see everything we're doing in the motion, so my apologies. I forget not everybody likes to talk as much as I do. Moving on to the next item is the Jones Avenue realignment. This is a change order to the professional services agreement. Now, normally I don't like to bring these to your attention because it means that we've underscoped it or missed some things in the original scoping of the project. But as all of you probably remember, in August of 2024, we had gone out and requested a proposal for this project in pursuit of the TAP grant funding that we did eventually get. And at the time, we had a full scope of what we believed the project was going to include. And I mentioned it in the work session earlier tonight that this project is falling behind on schedule through no fault of us and the Manick and Smith team, because there are just so many more federal requirements than we're used to, I guess, to some degree. Most of the projects we do in the city, we are replacing a road in exactly the same spot. So there's some of the federal, what they call the NEPA process, National Environmental Policy Act, that doesn't normally apply to city projects. And we really probably underestimated what that was going to require here. I mentioned that because we're shifting Jones Avenue a bit and we're realigning Jones and LaPleasant's, we're changing the footprint that the road is occupying. And that triggers a host of other issues which we were not anticipating, and that was one of those was tribal coordination, which is a fair enough point. We want to coordinate with the tribes that occupied the area at one time. It's usually about a 30-day process, but in conjunction with that, that's followed by an archaeological dig, which involved not only an expenditure of additional time to wait, but also significant expense because there's a prescribed fashion that you have to do that. And the costs on that one were pretty substantial, over $30,000 that needed to be added to the design contract. Above and beyond that, we also are looking at property acquisition, which should not be a big problem. We do have a willing partner in Habitat for Humanity because that's the main piece that we need to kind of swing Jones Avenue a little bit into their property. We've also found out, unfortunately, we have to get a little bit of property acquisition from ITC. So that's going to involve a little bit more expenditure of time and process. The other issue with that is that MDOT has made it very clear to us that we are to specifically and strictly follow their process, which is a lot more complicated than approaching Habitat, who is more than happy to give us fair market or charge us fair market value for their property. We now have to go through some additional steps that, frankly, I don't think are necessary, but because they're part of the federal process, they're required. So I'm coming to you with a $70,000 change order to that design contract to cover those aspects. We would prefer that the Manick and Smith Group's subconsultant handle the property acquisition, just so that we make sure that we're not missing anything at this point and we keep one line of responsibility. So that's what we're looking for here. And as I mentioned earlier in the work session, it's looking more and more likely this will be a spring 2027 project, just because it's becoming highly unlikely that we'll be able to get this programmed until about June or July. So.
Thank you. Any questions for Director Lewis? I think there's quite a bit of detail to this and the fact sheet as well as the information provided. If not, Councilman Hayter?
Your Honor. I move that the attached professional service change order proposal for the Jones Avenue reconstruction and intersection improvements be awarded to the Manikin Smith Group in the amount of $70,416, and that a total of $80,000 be encumbered to provide for a roughly 15% contingency, and that the Director of Engineering and Public Services be authorized to execute the agreement on behalf of the city.
By Councilman Hayter, supported by Councilwoman Stillgrave on item 5737, the Jonesville Pleasance realignment change order to professional services agreement. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Vining? Yes. Germaine?
Yes.
Stringham?
Yes.
Felder?
Yes.
Hayter?
Yes.
Stillgrave? Yes. Mayor Clark?
Yes. Next item, please.
The next item is 5790, City Hall backup generator bid.
Manager Robinson?
Your Honor, what we're asking for here is for a backup generator that would back up the generator that we currently have here, because it's very important that we have a generator that can secure our data points and our IT hardware, because we don't want to have failures or interruption or corruption of our data. This project was funded through a previous CIP program through budgets, but not fully. So we're looking to have the remainder of the project funded for us to procure this backup generator.
Question for Manager Robinson? Seeing none, this is an item up for approval from council. Councilwoman Stringham.
Move that the mayor and city council approve City Hall backup generator bid submitted by Decima LLC in the amount of $159,526, that a contingency amount and the additional 5-year warranty be approved, increasing the total project budget to $196,431, and authorize Assistant City Manager, Finance Director to amend the budget to allow for an appropriation from the capital project fund balance in the amount of $79,826.
Motion by Councilwoman Stringham, supported by Councilwoman Germaine on item 5790, the City Hall backup generator bid. Any further questions? Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Vining? Yes. Germaine?
Yes.
Stringham?
Yes.
Felder?
Yes.
Hayter? Yes. Stillgrave? Yes. Mayor Clark?
Yes. Next item.
The next item is item 5791, authorization to commence condemnation procedures for 1236 East Elm Avenue.
Manager Robinson.
Your Honor, after we've had numerous meetings and updates to council on this issue, we are simply asking this item to give authorization to our city attorney to commence the condemnation procedures for 1236 East Elm, as that is the remaining structure that is there for us for the River Raisin Heritage Corridor Master Plan.
Thank you. I know we've had a lot of conversation at work sessions and other sessions regarding this, and the use of the DNR trust fund grants. It doesn't appear to be going to bring this to conclusion, and therefore this item is with us. Is there any questions for the administration or city attorney?
Make a motion.
Councilwoman Germaine.
Move to authorize the city attorney to commence condemnation procedures as prescribed in Public Act 87 of 1980, and authorize the mayor and clerk treasurer to execute the necessary documents on behalf of the city.
Support.
Motion by Councilwoman Germaine, supported by Councilwoman Stringham on item 5791, the authorization to commence condemnation procedures for 1236 East Elm Avenue. Final comments? Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Vining? Yes. Germaine?
Yes.
Stringham?
Yes.
Felder?
Yes.
Hayter? Yes. Stillgrave?
Yes.
Mayor Clark?
Yes. Next item, please.
There are no further items this evening.
We got through the agenda. It was rather long. I appreciate everybody's patience, and for those, not just the council, but those that are here as well. Council comments. It is March. Councilman Vining, comments this evening?
Well, I had a question that's kind of off agenda, about this My Home program or Michigan Home program. So,
Sure.
okay, so the program said that we could qualify for the program if we make or have made 50% or more of the following recommended actions. And I know I was able to check off 3 that I know we already made. Are we already at that threshold?
I'm looking at Manager Robinson or staff to, this was actually one of the presentations that was at the Capitol Conference. I know you received the handout. We want to make sure we pass it along. It's something through the Michigan Municipal League and is supported by SEMCOG and the Michigan Township Association. But you're correct. How to qualify that through their program, there's a criteria list. And from the work done by our city staff and our trying to address our housing, we do qualify in that respect. I don't have the list in front of me, but I don't know if there's additional comments from administration or staff.
I don't have any additional comments on that unless Director Cochran might have some more
Director
information
Cochran, I
on
think,
that
yeah.
program.
Yep, good evening. So this program, if the city council recalls, it was about 2 years ago, we received a grant through MISTA, through the My Neighborhood program, to examine our zoning code, to update our zoning code to allow for more flexibility, to increase the density and efficiency in housing. And so through the My Home program, I know there is a list, and we did accomplish about 5 of those so far. So I can quickly tick off just a few of those. We did reduce the residential parking requirement to 1 space. That was the first one. We do allow for accessory dwelling units for long-term housing now. That was one of the updates that we made. We do allow for duplex as permitted use in residential areas, not all residential areas, but we did in most residential areas. And then we also reduced the allowable dwelling unit size. So the minimum square footage, we did reduce, I believe it's 800 square feet now in the new zoning code update. And then we did also reduce the minimum lot size requirements. And we also we allow for modular as permitted uses already through the building permit process. So that's not something that's called out in our zoning code, but we would qualify through the My Home program for the updates that City Council approved earlier this year.
Wonderful. I was just curious, I know we've been working towards a lot of those things, so thank you.
I appreciate you asking the question here in this setting, because it was one of the most significant topics at the CapCon in Lansing last week. And of course, with House bills that have come out, I think there's 9 now that are taking a position of I'll say removing some local authority or local abilities to manage your own communities by not going to planning commissions or not going to zoning. If it's open and a developer could have it, some of those are even more so, I'll say in smaller size and types that are there. So I would say if you have an interest, please look into the House bills if you need them. I know we can provide them for you instead of trying to find it yourself. This is a response from the Michigan Municipal League and many local officials that I know we received them. We passed them on if somebody wishes to, like I say, submit their name with that. But I know at one point it was 1,200. I think it's near 1,700 now elected officials that have signed on to this as an option versus what was presented to some of the House bills. I'm not going to get here and debate the House bills, but I suggest everybody look at it and think of how that worked for us. But those items that you pointed out, Councilwoman, and Mr. Cochran pointed out, we've already taken some of those steps to address that. And yet we still have challenging finding developers to come in, and we've already done what needed to be done in many respects to bring developers for housing in, and yet we do have housing projects ongoing. So not making a statement, I'll say, but just other than the fact look at all the information that's being presented and what's going through the House, and as well as what this provides. And hopefully we'll come to some resolution and conversation as our representatives in Lansing and also our governmental representatives in Lansing through the League and SEMCOG. Thank you for the explanation. Thanks for the
Thank
question.
you. I didn't have anything further, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. Councilwoman Germaini.
Thank you. And with those words, thank you. I want to commend the city staff and the DPS because every time I turned around on Friday, there was a tree that was crossing the road and blocking traffic and buses. And it was very challenging, and they did a great job keeping up with everything. And thank you for that, because it made things a lot easier for residents and traffic and buses as well. So thank you, and yeah, commend to everybody that they did a great job.
Thank you. Councilwoman Stringham.
Yes, I have a couple things. I see online that Jack's Bicycle Shop was listed as the Bike Shop of the Year, so congratulations to Scott and the team. I'm glad to have a bike shop here in town. And last week, not only did I go to CapCon, I also was into the police department, and I want to thank Director Tolstead and Lieutenant Marks and the other members of the police department for taking time to give me a tour of the police department. I was able to see the recent office updates and also demonstrate the technology, how we're using it to keep the public safe, the officers safe, and just integrating all of that. I appreciate the opportunity to see firsthand and look forward to continuing to supporting the efforts to strengthen public safety in our community. So thank you. And lastly, speaking of public safety, I want to say happy St. Patty's Day tomorrow, and if you celebrate, please do so safely, so that you don't have to meet some of our officers, maybe.
Thank you. Councilman Felder.
Congratulations again to Lieutenant Kegris and Detective Kleiner. Congratulations to Bonnie Weber, who, at least we reckon, I guess we'll have to wait till see what Frenchtown does, but we recommended to take the seat on LET, and I think that it speaks to the regional focus that that board has, and certainly Bonnie has been involved throughout this community and in her hometown of Dundee, and has decades of experience in public service. So I think it's very worthwhile for us to put her in that position. I want to call attention to something that we all received in our packet. There was some SEMCOG data that was presented, which shows a labor rate decline of about 30% over the next 25 years that's projected for Monroe County. And I think that we're all aware that the economic data in terms of median income and household income and poverty levels are much worse in the city of Monroe than they are in the rest of the county on average. I know that housing has been a priority for this council for at least the last 2 terms, and that's something that that's a challenge that we've tried to tackle and been very proactive about. But it's not going to matter if we have more homes if the people working in our community are not going to be able to afford to buy them. And that is an economic development concern for the city, though as a municipality, the state has limited our options in terms of other local control prohibitions on local action and local ordinances on these items where we cannot control relationships between employees and employers in our community. So while the actions that we can take are somewhat limited, it remains a concern for us to try and promote employers in this area who can pay affordable wages and aim our economic development strategy towards a way that enriches the people who are living in this community as well. Because it looks like there's going to be fewer of them in the future, and they're going to have to support the entire economy that we all depend upon. So I hope that that's something that we're paying attention to. And I certainly, at Councilwoman Stringham's recommendation, do plan on celebrating St. Patrick's Day. As some of you know, my brother's name is Patrick, and my 3 kids still think that Patrick's Day is for their uncle. So, so to my brother Patrick, happy Patrick's Day. We'll be seeing you tomorrow and Wednesday.
That's wonderful. Councilman Hayter.
I'd like to again congratulate Detective Kleiner and Lieutenant Kegris And, but I'd also like to congratulate Commander Tolstead. I could tell how proud you were of both those gentlemen today, and their success is a reflection of not only yourself, but your commanders and your leadership. So congratulations to you also.
Thank you. Councilwoman Steelgrave.
I think I'm just gonna pass.
Gonna pass. I was looking for something here because I know that, first I'll give another congratulations to firefighter and officer of the year. Thank the Public Safety Department for all their support and new initiatives. Please watch the work session to learn about some of those wonderful things they're doing and the training aspect. And part of that, we just had a firefighter that went through the paramedic, Ansel, right? Firefighter Ansel, yeah, and he achieved his paramedic status. It really ties to the whole process of how we're recruiting, how we're mentoring, how we're bringing along members within our public safety department. And the other part of that was presented today is about our public service officer, how we're in the schools. We're asking to provide more support in the schools. And it's not about standing our guard. It's about interaction with the students and interaction with our community as community service officers. So I just wanted to say that as well. I don't have any other comments for this evening. Clerk Lavoie?
I think for brevity's sake, I will just offer my congratulations to the officers. I have a slightly unique position being here full-time. I get to see their interaction and the other public safety personnel's interaction with the staff. And I really appreciate their kindness and their respect to civilians. And we're not professionals in that department, but they always treat us with great respect and care. And I just wanted to say that I appreciate that. So that's all, Your Honor.
Thank you. Manager Robinson.
Mine will be brief as well. We've congratulated the detective and the firefighter. But I think really what speaks volumes is when you looked in this room from where we sit, how many fellow officers and firefighters that they had here out of respect for them and caring for them to show the solidarity of how them together. I just think it's something to really be proud of, and it's something that we've talked about a lot, and a culture that's being built in the public safety department that really is what we all want to see as a team. And I thank you for the good work you do.
Thank you. Before I go to the public, there was one other comment. We talked about the charter discussion. I appreciate the input from council. Manager Robinson did send us another email that had kind of like a review of the goals and objectives discussion. If you could look at that again, please, and forward back any comments you may have. Or I noticed some things that I'll be sending it to the city manager here tomorrow. But one thing that came up when looking at all the list of the goals and objectives and how we look at past and where we're going with the future, what those items may be, and it came up to this evening again, the part about resiliency and our focus as we move forward. And as they say, there's always things that come up that, yeah, we talk about, but we're really starting to have a significant impact. It was one of the council agenda items this evening about the grant, and that was about resiliency, about the disaster mitigation. And I think about our stormwater, and all that we are already offering from the water and wastewater about lead lines and replacements and partnerships with the community, how we can take care of those things and not just mitigate that, but mitigate items of litigation. And I think that that's an item that I at least have in my notes of something, how we put that in as a strength this year and over the next 2 years. And with all we're doing, but is there opportunities that we can accelerate some of that so we take care of it, and hopefully that grant funding will help with some of that. So that's my comments for this evening. Some comments from those present here this evening. Public comment. Any comments from those present here this evening? If so, just come forward, please. State your name, jurisdiction of residence in 3 minutes. Comments this evening. I don't see any, but I see somebody's here in the back I have not met. I hope to meet before I go. Students, by chance? Okay, can you come forward? Excellent. See, there's a good volunteer. But when I see a student and maybe with a parent or student, are you here for class organization opportunities? Or tell us who you are and why you're here.
I'm Sylvia Brockman. I live here in Monroe, downtown, and I'm here just to kind of watch and learn. And my mom had to leave. She has some meetings tonight. She does some real estate, but I was able to hear what you have to say, and it's very interesting to hear. In my community, I've done some government studies recently, and I went to the courthouse and done something with that and had talked to some of the judges there, but it's very interesting to see my own community and what it's affecting because it does affect me even. Very interested to hear about the tree because that is a big part of my childhood and it's very fun to hear. And how that's going to happen too, I cannot imagine, even though I know you say 24 feet is small, that's going to be a big project.
Well, thank you for being here.
Yes, of course. Thank you for all you do in our community. I know it's a lot and it's a big job. Thank you. Have a good evening.
We said hello. I knew
Yes.
she had to leave. Okay.
I will. Thank
All right.
you so much.
So I see a students here, and I hate to make one more comment as we continue this evening, but as we've said at previous meetings, it's been in our newsletter. It's on the city's website about our sister city. Student applications are currently being accepted. It's between 9th and 12th graders can go to our sister city. It's about a 2-week stay, a little bit plus. And they live with host families and with the Japanese families. And in return, our sister city of Hof, Japan sends 5 students here. And the opportunity, it's a educational and cultural exchange opportunities. The applications can be found online through the city's website. Or if anybody has questions, they're welcome to call me or stop me and ask me. Because the end of the month is when the applications are due. Right around the corner because we'll start doing interviews in April. But please look at, if you have an interest of learning more about that and you fit and can fill out the application, gets a few comments and references. And the interviews, as I said, will be in April, probably mid-April. That's my final comments. And we have yet work to do this evening. So I'm looking for, next is a consideration there for close. Councilwoman Stringham?
I move that we enter closed session for the purposes of land acquisition and review of attorney-client privileged correspondence.
Support.
Motion by Councilwoman Stringham, supported by Councilman Hayter to go into closed executive session for the purposes stated. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Vining?
Yes.
Jermaine? Stringham? Felder? Hayter? Stilgrave? Mayor Clark?
Yes, and thank you.